YouTube. It's Brian Phillips. We've got this box to open right here, right now, and it's gonna be amazing. If you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC, what we do is we unbox these planes, we set up the radios, we build them, we do all that good stuff, and we'll help you do it too, along with us. So hopefully, we answer all your questions and we don't go too fast. That seems to be a general topic of conversation. Oh yeah, look at that. It is the, which one is this?
This should be the Miss America one, I think.
Miss America is right there. Okay, so Miss America. So this is a P-51 V2 racing, 1100 millimeter racing P-51. And this is from FMS. So we're gonna show you exactly what this plane is all about. We've already done this in the Voodoo trim livery, and we did that a while back. I think we did that, it might have actually had the reflex in it. We're gonna see what this one has. Just throw that right there. And yes, they do come in different finishes. So we've got the Dago Red, the Blue Thunder 2, the Voodoo, and the Miss America. So we've already done the Voodoo in the 1.1 meter size class. Yes, we did fly that on 4 and 6S. And yes, it was intense on 6S. It was intense on 4S. We're gonna figure out what we're gonna do on this one. Not 100% sure yet, but they say powerful, more power and speed, okay? So, and this is a plug and play, which means that you provide your own radio system. In our case, we'll use an NX10 from Spectrum, and we'll set it up probably with a 631, because just keep in mind, folks, you could do a 630 and it'd fit really nice in this thing, but they are fast and they cover a lot of ground, okay? So if you think of a pylon racer, they're going fast, high banking turns. It's pretty exciting stuff. So I think that's what we're gonna end up doing. But without further ado, we're gonna get into it right now. By the way, this does come equipped with retracts and flaps. So super excited to share this experience. Great flying plane. Very good, a little bit hard to land because they like to bounce in, so just be aware of that. But not an especially hard to fly plane, and we know this from experience, but we're gonna show you how this Miss America comes out of the package right now. So obviously with FMS products, we get good quality builds, usually go together pretty easy, and we share all the steps on Brian Phillips RC. We like to show the unbox, build, and radio setup. So if you guys are brand new to the channel and you're just trying to figure out what we're all about, we've done this thousands of times, videos, thousands of times, maybe not 1,000 planes, but got to be getting close to it. We unbox them, we build them, we radio set them up, and we show you all the different reasons, or at least try to show all the reasons why we picked what we picked, so that you can make decisions based on what your needs are. Look at that beautiful unfolded manual, I must say. That is the way it should always be, FMS and other manufacturers. Okay, so we have a manual. We can ignore that now. Okay. Just kidding, guys. We will not completely ignore it. We'll look at things like CG in there. Yep, carbon fiber rod. This is gonna be the wing joiner for the tail. So as you can see, very thin, but stiff and strong, okay? And you can tell because it twangs, and when you hit the counter, if it was more of a dull thud, it would be like a fiberglass thing, okay? Beautiful prop, okay? This is a 10.5/8, which means 10.5 inches here to here. And then 8, meaning 8 inches of penetration, if you will, per revolution at rated speeds and things like this. I never did understand the whole pitch thing, but that speaks to the pitch of the blade. If you don't know what I mean when I say that, the pitch of the blade is how steep this is, okay? It's like that's the pitch of the blade, right? That would be 0 degrees, that would be 90 degrees, that would be not 90 degrees. So anyway, guys, there you go. We just wanna go through some of the details. If you're brand new to the hobby, there is a lot to learn. There's a lot of nomenclature that's used, technical jargon that may not make sense to you, and that's okay because you'll eventually catch on, because at Brian Phillips RC, we try to explain some of the things that all the hobby companies assume you know at birth, or maybe even before birth. We assume that you don't know. And so please don't take that as an insult to your intelligence. If you do know, 2-piece spinner, painted finish, very nice finish, by the way.
It's a matte finish.
I like the matte finish too, and I like the fact that it's gonna match the paint well.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they do plastic spinners, the color match is just not quite there. But I do like color match spinners when they get it right, because then if you get a scratch on the spinner, it's less likely to show up. But when you scratch plastic, you almost always get a white hue to the scratch, and so it does show up despite their best efforts. Okay, so as we continue the unbox, in fact, I'm gonna take these out next. This looks like the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind. When you look at a horizontal stabilizer, if you wanna find out if this thing is quality, a couple things to look at. Resistance to movement like this. Carbon fiber rods. Carbon fiber rods here and here are gonna help to make things stiff. Pinch hinge, that would be actually a low quality thing, okay? Size, shape, you know, how does the profile look? Does it have details? How's the trimming? You can see the trimming here is pretty poor, okay? These are the types of things that we point out on models. Now, do I care about any of those things in terms of like a negative light on this model? Not really. So far, it's fine. Decal, jigged paint. Jigged paint will not pop up and bzzz at 100 miles an hour plus, okay? Jigged paint may not look as good, okay? So there's always a trade-off. Also, the pops of color sometimes that come from the decals are a little bit stronger. And a ball link, this is called a ball link on a control horn that's actually molded into the joiner between the left, or in this case, that'd be the right side elevator and the left side elevator, okay? So then you have a consistent positioning here. So you get a nice elevator function without causing like a little bit of a disparity, will cause roll, okay? So we try to go over things that we see are important in the model build. Now that doesn't always mean we talk a lot about motor sizing and things like this. We'll try to blast through the details if it's listed on the box, but really it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if it's a 56, 48, 563 kV. That doesn't really matter to me. Does it have enough power to go fast and be awesome? Yes, I already know it will. Spoiler alert, it will. But we don't try to waste your time on that stuff, because like to me it doesn't really matter. If you're into sizing power systems and your name is Gary, then you know who you are. Then we understand. And there's guys that develop these things. Look at this. Jigged paint, very good color match on the stickers, not pressed down tight. Reinforcements for the landing gear on an otherwise thin wing with a beautiful profile. This is where there's gonna be a, oh dang it, a fence, a wing fence here. So you see they've left off the paint there, so that's nice. And then we have this little wing box thingy that goes down in there. It's actually popped out on ours. I might throw a little bit of China glue in there just so it stays put. Beautiful retracts, very basic, very simple, light duty, and rock hard tires. FMS, you need to do better. And so does every other manufacturer right now. By the way, there are a few manufacturers that are pushing hard because we are griping loud. We love soft tires. Soft tires make us look better as pilots and make us feel better when we don't bounce a landing, okay? I'm just gonna say soft tires make a big difference, but they are not necessary if you're flying a grass strip, okay? If you're flying on a paved strip like we do, our 275 feet currently runway, which is gonna hopefully get longer and not too long. It's gonna make for easier landings too. Mm-hmm. We'll keep you guys appraised of that situation. So we've got all these stars. That's pretty cool. Looks like they put this one wrong. That's supposed to point that direction, but no big deal. Okay, and then it's number 11, evidently. I don't know anything about pylon racers, full disclosure, guys. I know about RC airplanes, and I love airplanes. I have an appreciation for their full-scale peers, but I don't always know. So I'm not gonna tell you if I don't know. I just know that this is a really good wing design. It's got a little bit of dihedral. To be honest with you, the P-51 has the dihedral, so I like that it matches. But you also notice that the canopy setup on a racing P-51 is gonna be different than the Warbird that you're used to seeing. And we're gonna get to that in just a minute or two as we continue to unpack this thing. So we hope we point out the right details to help you make a right decision. There are so many different amazing options right now for radio controlled aircraft that we would be fools to say every plane is for everybody at every time. That's one of the things we help people decide is this the right plane for you right now based on your budget, your skills, your environment, your flying knowledge, flying skills, equipment. Oh, there's the wing fences.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go over those a little bit later. And that's one of the things we aim to do on Brian Phillips RC. If you guys haven't picked up on that already, it is something that we want to make sure we're trying our best at, okay? So we have a stapled nut and bolt sack. If you could grab my nut and bolt sack, that'd be great.
It's a small one.
Yeah. Yes, that's the way we like it.
Yeah, my
we
favorite.
don't like a lot of loose parts that we have to put together. Now, I'm just, full disclosure, guys, I want you to notice something. Right here, this was covered up with foam. That's where my nut sack was, nut and bolt sack.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I gotta say, the finish on this plane is really, really nice.
Yeah, I like it.
The Voodoo was nice. I'm not a huge fan of the Voodoo finish myself, the livery, but I gotta say, I really like the way this looks. Red, white, and blue is cool. Let me go back 2 seconds. I wasn't crazy about it, and then I saw it fly, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna tell you something, I was disappointed about the canopy. This canopy is a smaller canopy than what you would get on a standard P-51 Warbird, and that's because this is a pylon racer, okay? So it's got slightly different trim lines. And I gotta say, I think this one pulls it off a little bit better, but just my opinion. Again, not everybody is gonna agree with that. And you can see a big brushless motor, okay? Usually you can tell brushless motor is good when it's very hard to turn. This thing has tons of magnetic pressure in there, which is nice. And then of course you can see these exhaust details here on the side. Very cool. I'm sure you guys will point out more details in the comments down below. If you want to leave comments, do it. This thing is very close to the mains, so just keep in mind that thing is going to be squirrely as heck on the ground. And you can see that we have an exhaust port here, which is really nice. And I think it's cool that they've got the N number on there. Okay, so the other thing too we can look at when we look at the body of a plane like this is we can think about weight. We can think about the lack of twist. We almost never do this, but just show the people it is twisting, but only barely, okay? And I'm strong, I could break this in half if I wanted. I'm sure you could too. But the truth is, there's a lot of reinforcement. So people that say, oh, you're just flying foam cups. I'm like, my foam cups are freaking awesome. You can, if foam cups were always that awesome, I would have been buying them as a kid because these foam cups are amazing. And they're getting a lot better because even in the short time we've been doing this, you know, a couple thousand videos, almost 10 years of our life, 4 kids later. Well, did we have one?
Well, we had 2 kids.
We
when
had 2
started.
Technically, but they were still small, so they don't really count. So 4 kids later, and these things have improved drastically over the life of that experience, our experience. We'll show you inside in just a minute, but let's talk about the box. Obviously, FMS does a pretty good job of packaging these things. There is nothing that is going to stop all potential for damage, but we have almost never had a dead on arrival component from FMS, which is better than average. We had somebody the other day complaining that they had some bad experience with FMS, and I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? We've had like an amazing experience. That's not to say that you couldn't have had, but I'm gonna be honest with you. We've had a couple of DOA parts from Horizon made by FMS, but like, I mean, it was like 1 servo. And I was thinking the Timber 1.5, our first Timber 1.5, we had a little bit of damage on a cowl or something like that, but we've been really fortunate. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people that have had genuine issues, and that's one of the reasons why we like working with reputable companies that are gonna take care of you if there is a problem, and FMS has a good reputation within the industry for taking care of people, not maybe as good as their, you know, Horizon. But the truth is, we've dealt with issues from all different brands at certain points. And at this point, we're really happy with the way that FMS has been treating people. We don't ever hardly hear complaints, so we're really glad about that. And obviously, we've had good experience with these different companies, or we wouldn't have been working with them. The ones that are bad, we pretty much eliminate them quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so building this plane is gonna be a fairly easy process because as you can see, piece count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, including the manual. That's
bad.
pretty good. Now, of course, there's gonna be some extra parts and components in the nut and bolt sack. And then, of course, we're gonna have to do a receiver and all sorts of stuff in here, which will be, of course, covered in the video as we go. But just in terms of piece count, that's pretty dang good. Now, if you guys don't have a plane stand is a good idea. It's probably a better idea to have a plane stand than it is to use your wife's Afghans and blankets, because when you cut a hole in them with a P-51, I might add, you'll be hearing about it for the next 10 years, at least.
Our kids just found out about that this week.
They didn't know.
They didn't know that's where that hole came
from. So I cut the hole in my wife's blanket that's rolled up in there.
It's rolled up on the shelf over here.
And I did that with a P-51 Blondie 1.2. One of my favorites.
Yep, amazing plane.
Yeah, very good plane. I love the trim livery on that one too. It was super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get too far in this build, I want to talk about how we're going to do this build. The wing goes under here. It's pretty easy, but just remember, this fuse is fairly narrow, okay? The 1.1 meters have a reasonably small pocket for getting all the wires. And you see all these wires, they all have to go inside of there, okay? So just keep in mind, use a little bit of strategic moves. It will make your life easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting the tail feathers on, I think. Okay, so tail feathers are going to go together like this. This is going to slide through. They're going to meet each other through the back of the fuse, okay? And then we're gonna have a couple of screws that go through right here and actually hold everything together, okay? So how do you know what the top and bottom of the wing are on a horizontal stabilizer and elevator? Well, this assembly makes it kind of hard because it's like, I mean, I can tell because of the way the molding is, and I can tell where the screw hole is, but an easier way would be to take the mating pair and see what direction the control horn goes, and that's gonna tell you where it goes, because over here, we've got the control horn, okay? So I can actually do this vertically. Plane stands are nice for that. If you guys ever need supplies like China glue, or plane stands, or receivers, transmitters, batteries, anything like that, we usually link in the top of the video description to the plane, the receiver we used, and the battery we recommend. We get the question all the time, hey, what one do you recommend? Do us a favor, because we go through tens of thousands of comments. Please check the video description if you can. If you're new to the channel, we understand there's gonna be people that haven't heard that before. So we don't mean to beat you over the head with that, but we do want you guys to use that utility that we've built in, okay? See, it's not one to go, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes it's hard to get alignment. So I'm gonna take this out, I'm gonna slide it through first, and then what happens is, now that that's slid through, I can slide this on, and then slide this on, and it might make it a little easier, okay? So once we do that, then we can just get one side started and one side started. Now I want to point out the fact that this white unfinished foam makes for an easier insertion than a painted, jigged painted, like this blue. If this was blue right here, it would crinkle up and make a mess of the insertion point, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I don't mind white foam planes. But some people complain that you can see through this and it makes it look a little bit cheaper. I personally could care less, keep the plane light, keep the cost down for the manufacturers. And you know, once in a while, it's probably a rounding error on a plane like this size. But the truth is, we aim to have the best experience for the lowest cost, and we want to drive success within the RC community. So when we see good things, we call it out. When we see bad things, we call it out as much as we can, so that you guys can make good decisions based on, like for instance, we mentioned the pinch hinge design on the elevator. It's typically a little bit weaker design than if you have a reinforced pinch hinge, where they actually pinch a piece of hinge work inside of the foam body, and then they mold everything in. So it works really nice, and we've seen it on planes. I'm trying to think of a good example of a plane that has a pinch hinge on the wing. I can't think of one right now, but I'll think of it eventually. Or, you know, you go to a much more expensive plane like this F7F, which is a gorgeous, amazing experience of a plane, and you're gonna see a more robust hinge design. You can see the hinge right there. Excuse my dust. Here, I'll just, see right there? See right there? There's hinges actually integral to the frame, okay? But sometimes when they're smaller planes, you just don't have enough real estate to do that. All right, so jumping into the nut and bolt sack, we're going to pop this open, Once it's popped open, we're gonna call out the parts that are in here. First of all, this is gonna be the spinner adapter. It's gonna go there, and then this will get assembled around it, something like that. Okay, this gets screwed on and holds it to the motor, and then this gets screwed on through the top. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a minute. And then what else do we have? We've got, obviously this antenna is going to be, oh, excuse me, that's a pitot tube maybe? I can't tell yet. Where does this one go? Oh, it goes on the wing.
Yep.
It goes on the wing. Where does it go on the wing though? Goes on the wing tip.
Oh, it goes down on the other
Goes here, right there. So we'll do that at the very end, only because we want to avoid the possibility of having damage. Ooh, and then also speaking of design, these ball links and servos for the inboard flaps and ball links and servos for the ailerons are already pre-installed, but we got a little China glue there, no problem. Just strings right off. And as you can see, those things are already installed. We don't have to do that. We like that. Good job, FMS. Oh, and we were talking about the quality, the stiffness of the wing. This thing is a very high performance plane. So you're gonna tend to see that the wing loading is a little bit higher, meaning that there is more loading, AKA it's a heavier plane for the same exact size and footprint, which means you'll have to fly a little bit faster or deploy flaps to fly at a slower speed before you fall or stall, okay? All right, so we're gonna continue. Okay, so we have two empty nut sacks here, nut and bolt sacks. We'll lay those out of the way. We have one control linkage with a ball link on the end, okay? So if you look close at that, you can see that one side has a lip, a very small lip. Can you see that? Are you trying to show them the lip?
Oh, yep. I can see
And then this side doesn't, it's flat. So there is a right and a wrong way, believe it or not. One side is a little bit bigger than the other, if I recall. And you can tell, if you look close, on the way that the factory assembled them.
I can see on this one, so the flat side is out.
Okay.
And then that little lip would be in.
Yep, that looks the same here too.
Yep.
So the lips go in, guys. Yep, lips in and lips in. And by the way, I want to point something out here. You see the servo? See how the arm, the control arm, it's to your right and your right. And then you see how this is also to your right and this one's to your left. That means that they straddled the control horn on the control surface, in this case the outboard aileron on the right wing, but since we're upside down, that's on your left. Pay close attention to the fact that this is in square alignment here. We've got 90 degree here, 90 degree here, and 90 degrees in. Okay, so look for alignment. That means it's a better design. There are a lot of planes that are in alignment like that really nicely, but you start getting into the cheap garbage, you'll see they're not aligned. They're just like, whatever, just get that rod wherever it needs to go. Okay, we don't see that from FMS, so thank God. All right, so show them my nut and bolt sack contents there. Camera crew, I'm gonna grab my
I feel like
screwdriver.
there's a lot of screws here.
Well,
1, 2,
that's because we have to mount the wing.
3, 4,
We have to, okay, so
5, 6. What are the...
just listen for a sec. These small ones, okay? These small ones are going to be used for something. These are gonna probably be used for the tail feathers. These are gonna be used for something else. I don't know what yet, I can't remember. These are gonna be used for the wing and the spinner.
And then there'd be one extra, so that
So
makes
one
sense.
spinner,
Yep.
one extra, okay?
Yep, okay.
Disqualify it, boom. Then we have one extra of this, and disqualify it, boom. Because it's FMS, you can pretty much do that right away. Now, I don't know why we have 4 of these. I feel like there should only be, these don't screw in, do they?
No, they have little teeth.
We'll open this up. These get glued in with China glue. We'll show you how to use China glue effectively. It's very easy, and it works good. Got another empty bag.
Oh, good.
Okay. But I feel like these ones here, there should be only one extra.
Right.
I'm about 99% sure that that goes in here and holds this together. Why would they give us these ones?
We're gonna have to look at the
We're gonna have to look at the manual. This is disgusting. I don't want to look at no stinking manual.
I'll look. You don't have to look.
Okay, so slide that over. And here's inside the manual. Wait, we have a looming cat bite.
Oh, jeez. Here, you show them the cat fight and I'll find.
What we have in their natural environment. The master bedroom dweller named Colby. And then Callie, who is looking on the hunt. You may have heard the hiss momentarily. There will be a fight. Oh, they've lost interest. The cats have lost interest.
Now they know that you're paying attention to them.
Now they know that they're in trouble. You see, she's back there thinking, oh boy, I'm in trouble. I have no escape. I have no escape.
Hey, we weren't wrong.
What?
The 20 millimeter ones, there's 4 in the wings. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And then the other one goes in the prop and the spinner, like we thought.
Yeah.
And then, you're all zoomed in weird. Okay, here we go.
Because there was cat fighting about to happen.
Then look, 2 of these 2.6 by 12.
That's these ones.
And that's all that's listed in the screw set.
They must have given us these because these must be like spares for this landing gear assembly. I don't know why.
I don't think we need those.
We're just going to put these over here, right there, and we'll find out when we miss something.
Okay.
All right, so getting back to the point, we're not gluing these on, we're putting the tail on, okay?
So you need the black.
So the black ones.
Phillips.
Okay, so Phillips, we'll just grab, this one, okay? Oh yeah, that's a good fit. Kind of wish these were hex drives, so. And they're gonna go in through here. And if you're in any doubt, I have my finger on the top side just to make sure it doesn't purchase too far. Oh, that's a perfect fit. Folks, that was like really easy.
That's why I was so confused why there
I'm
were so many
a little bit confused
screws.
why they gave us so many too. I almost feel like there's a control horn that we're supposed to install.
Maybe they've changed that since.
You know, I bet what it is at one point, I bet we had to install this landing gear assembly and they just changed the design. And so rather than changing it at the manufacturing line, they just said, forget it.
Yeah.
It cost us like 1.5 cents for those 4 screws. All right, so this is going to eventually go in here. It's gonna snap on, and we found out that the lip, this thing goes in, the lips go in on the balls. So just make sure that the lips go onto the balls correctly. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the drawing here real quick, just to make sure. They say the outside hole in this image, okay? But we're not gonna do that yet, and I'll tell you why. But then later, they show on the outside arm and the outside hole, but we don't actually have to put it in the hole because the balls are already mounted for us, which is really nice. Also, right here is where the CG is gonna be listed. We will show that a little bit later. If you're a big stickler for hyper precision, I want it to work like the factory said, you can do control horn settings where you actually check the output. You can do this. I have never once,
Never ever.
not even one time.
Really? On anything ever?
Ever.
Never
done it.
Okay.
I just wanted to say it because now if it was like 2 or 3 planes we were deep, I mean, this is the living room, okay? My basement looks a lot worse than this, okay? And when I say worse, I mean, this is a pretty good way for a living room to look, in my opinion.
Which is only one of our opinions.
I don't know what other opinion matters. I love airplanes, okay? All right, and like that SR-71 over there, why is that not mounted on the wall like a beautiful showpiece?
Because
above the lamp.
I also live here.
Listen,
you would like
if
to
somebody
continue
walks
living
in,
here.
I think we should mount it in the bathroom so that when people visit the bathroom.
You can mount it in the bathroom.
Then there is, okay, we'll do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna come up with the 3D printed SR-71 mount, and Bert, eat your heart out. If you guys don't know who Bert is.
You can come visit our SR-71 in the
our
bathroom.
SR-71 bathroom. Okay, China glue. We have to talk about China glue. It's a big topic. I'm an expert on this topic. China glue. If you don't know what China glue is a mucilage-based product. In most cases, mucilage is like a tree bark. Why don't you tell me I have crap upside down?
Because you were still talking.
Gosh, it's embarrassing. And then this is FMS China glue, okay? The reason we show foam to foam and China glue from FMS is because they are different package sizes. We've had equally good success with the cheaper, but it's also less like volume. And we've had very good luck with foam to foam. So when you're buying your receiver from Spectrum, which we'll link to in our video description below, you can buy like a tube of this. This stuff is like, hovers between about 15 bucks and like $8, depending on if it's on sale. Sometimes they overbuy, There was one time where they were selling it at like a loss or something. So I was like, why the heck are you doing that? Probably because they bought way too much of it. This stuff here comes in unmarked boxes. Like it's wrapped in, you know, like, I don't want to continue with that story. I might say something that gets me in trouble legally. But anyway, this stuff here is really good. We like this stuff. It's very clear. And what it reminds me of, same thing with foam to foam, is it reminds me of rubber cement. You used to open it up and you had like a dipping, you know, stick thing with like a brush on the end. And then you would paint it on your artwork and you would stick it together and then you'd get it all over your hands. You're like, whoa, a booger, amazing. Same thing is true with foam to foam and China glue, okay? This is also China glue. We link to this stuff in our supplies section. Camera crew's been working on trying to update that. Why do I have China glue? Because I want to glue this thing in, okay? This is a little breakout board box thing, okay? And the reason I want to glue this in is because we're going to be eliminating our access to it here in a minute. And so I like that you have to pierce the opening here, whereas this type of foam to foam, this comes, see, it's starting to kind of, see, it's balling up on me. This stuff comes opened, and that's one thing I'm not a big fan of, but I've never had it dry.
And it has that more precision tip on it.
It does have a little bit nicer tip, and the bottle is a little bit thinner, and that there's some advantages. Plus, this has like safety warnings and stuff. Like, if don't eat it, it's glue.
Whoever has it in stock, just buy it.
Just buy it. Buy it, and buy it each time. You know, like get one tube now, get one tube on your next purchase. It's not like super expensive stuff, but you don't want to be without it, okay? Because you will go through a bunch on one model, and then you won't go through it for a while. Now, the thing you're gonna learn about me is, and don't leave in the comments about putting it in the fridge. I've heard that 1,000 times. I've done it. I didn't have success with it myself. CA drives me nuts. I have CA. I have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on CA. I've never found a CA that doesn't dry out before I need the crap, okay? It's not because the CA is bad. It's because of my particular choice. And we are building planes all the time. Guess what doesn't dry out? China glue and foam to foam. Guess what does? Hobby King's mucilage. I have gotten it and opened it and had it dry before I even used it. That will piss you off, okay? So that's why I never recommend them. Now there's another Bob Smith Industries product. You can just stay there, camera crew. I'm gonna grab a Bob Smith bottle. Yeah, that's right. It's in my cabinet, okay? So I'm gonna cover up whatever brand that is because I could care less who sold us this stuff, okay? This is Bob Smith Industries. They also have one that's in a clear tube, and it's called like foam glue.
Foam tack or
foam
something.
tack. And a lot of people ask us about foam tack. I have no problem with that. Oh, here's some more Bob Smith Industries glue. We've been trying for years to get Bob Smith to give us the time of day because we literally like make models all the time. And we just like desperately want somebody we just like put links to so it's easy for our customers. Okay. So you see this? This is super thin and runny. This is a little bit thicker, gap filling. This is foam safe. It's also known as low odor, okay? This is not low odor, and it's not foam safe unless you're on an EPO model. Many times you can get away with EPO and the non-foam safe. The cat wants to eat birds, guys. I don't know if you can hear that. But this stuff might install bay, whatever.
I don't know.
So this is BSI. Bob Smith makes this.
Yep.
Bob Smith makes this. It's just branded for whoever they're selling through, okay? Not that there's any reason, we get the CA the cheapest place we can get it, okay? So we just want to find a partner for this stuff. And we have not ever really used the stuff that Horizon sells. So we don't know if it's any good. What is that, Zap? I'm sure it's fine. We don't mean to like brand specific on everything we do, but the truth is we really do like foam to foam, okay? But I like this because whenever I'm buying a model, I like grabbing something while I'm there paying shipping already, okay? All right, getting back to the point. I'm sorry, we went on a major tangent there about glue, China glue. Okay, now I'm gonna use, did I use this? I used this there.
FMS, yep.
We'll use foam to foam over here. It's the same crap, different day, guys. I'll just show you the difference. This stuff goes on, and one thing I don't like about the foam to foam compared to the China glue from FMS is that it seems like this takes a little bit more to tack up, okay? Because it's smooth going on, smooth like butter.
a little more time to tack up?
Yeah, like I noticed it doesn't cook off quite as quick. Oh. Yeah, which is, it's not a huge deal. But I'm just gonna say this, I really, and I'll do the other one with that stuff, okay? These wing fences have to get glued on at some point, right? Mm-hmm. So these are ambidextrous. Nope, they're not. Mm-hmm. See? The cutout, point at the cutout.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah, shorter here.
So that means this one goes here and that one goes down there. Why? Because you need to make room for the aileron right there.
Yep.
Okay, so this one's gonna go here. Now, what's the correct way to use foam to foam or China glue or foam tack is to put glue on both surfaces. You see how light that is now? That's not enough to matter. You need to put more on there. What?
Do you need help?
No.
I just want to splooge out all over the place like
God.
that.
There it goes. Sorry. It's right there. Oh man, what a mess. See, and that's why aluminized tubes are kind of a mess. And the camera crew called it. She was cringing that whole time. And I'm like, whatever, I don't need no help. I don't need no stinking help. Probably did need help. All right, now, this, if that was CA, we'd be like dropping stuff all over to clean it up, okay? If it's foam to foam, who cares, guys? That's why I like this stuff. Notice I'm getting it all over my penetration rods. You know, you want to get your rod wet before you stick it in, I promise you. I know that from experience too, okay? And then we're just gonna slide this along, and you'll notice that what's gonna happen is over time, now watch this, the spot on the counter, give them an extreme close-up, camera crew.
Tell me where it was, honey.
Where was it?
It was over here. It's gone, I mean like, it's gone,
Just
it's
let
fine.
me find it. Where is it?
It's
I wanted
gone.
to make a booger for the people.
Oh, well, even if
it's gone.
Even if we find it in a couple hours,
that's
it'll roll
why
off.
we really like this stuff. Okay, so the ideal method is to put it on and let it cook off. So that's why we keep blabbing, all right? And you notice sometimes I stick this like onto the bottle. Once it's cured enough that it just like rolls around and doesn't stick to everything it touches, it's not gonna hurt your wife's counter, I promise. But watch this, okay? So there you go, there you have it. So it's a contact cement. And that means that it's gonna hold stuff. Now, you won't believe me, but I could probably, I don't know about holding up the whole plane on this connection because it's not a very big connection. This is gonna pull in tight, like that. Make sure you got the right one, just double re-inspect. Slide the fence down so it doesn't push. You see this right here? You gotta show the people. See this? Mm-hmm. I'm watching out for that, but I want this tucked in tight. I don't want it to interfere with the ailerons because we have to pierce the foam. Now that I've penetrated, I have good penetration. I've pierced the foam. I'm gonna push this in really tight and it's on there. It's in there, it's not coming off. I could go fly this right now, except that the wing isn't attached to the plane.
It's a little windy.
Okay, so you see that? Beautiful, right?
Yep.
And then you see this little bit of extra glue here? If you ever have extra glue, I wanna warn you about something. This is a painted surface. This is gonna be a cautionary tale. It might pull the paint off. Okay, a little bit of glue is on this, so I rolled this. Okay, watch this, watch this. See, I'm just peeling that off. Now, do you think it's gonna take the paint off?
I think you're gonna be okay.
I think it is because this is thick paint. If it's thin, you better be careful, folks. Just try not to spill your glue on there.
And it's probably better to do it when it's fresher like this than let it
if you let it totally cure
to the surface.
But you see what's happening? Give it an extreme close-up. It's pulling it right out, so it's like gone like it never existed, and it's not hurting a dang thing. If you try doing that with CA, good luck, folks. Ain't gonna work, okay? Now, the pitot tube, or the simulated pitot tube, is actually on this end. So we'll just do this real quick before we install the wing. I will use the FMS product this time because they're both like really good. You won't be disappointed with either one. I actually slightly prefer this, and that's because I have to pierce to open, okay? But like I said, if one's out of stock, just get the other one, okay? Okay, so we just do a little bit. I do go a little bit more liberal with this stuff because it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because it's like a little cheaper or what, but I don't even really think they're cheaper. It's about the same price. Okay, so I'm just, see what I'm doing? There it is. And you see how stringy it is? That's what you want from a glue, okay? That stringiness means that it's really easy to get where you need it. Now, watch this. Okay, now I'm gonna just take this and just work it into the edges so I cover the entire flat portion. And remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like this is just, you're just spreading it so that it covers the surface, and I wanna get that little lip up there, okay? And see, that's like cooking off already, which is perfect. And if you guys don't know what I mean by cooking off, I mean let it chemically react with the open air that it's in. Man, I went like way heavy on that.
Yeah,
That
you
was
did.
like way too much. Dang it.
Can you take some and put it on that pitot tube?
Yeah, I could. Good idea.
Because that is a lot.
That's way too much. Now I'm just gonna lay this down and I don't have to worry about it coming off on the counter, which is nice. And those strings, don't worry, the strings are not a big deal. You can roll them up just like a hot glue string. You see it on my fingers, guys? Look like I'm Spider-Man. Look at this, gone, gone. Also, if you get this really in a bad spot and you wanna take it off, you can use kicker. That would accelerate CA, okay? You can use that and it will, man, that's a big glob right there. So I'm gonna take this, and I think I can put it on this surface because it's unpainted, and then I wanna get it up in there, and I wanna get it up in there. You're probably thinking like, how do you know where that goes? I don't know, you just kind of look at, study the way it looks on the model. Now I'm gonna lay this down here, just to keep it, the vast majority of the goop from touching the counter. Like we discussed, not gonna hurt anything, but I still don't wanna make a mess. Okay, now I'm gonna put a little bit of glue back here. And actually that's a good point, camera crew. I'm gonna try to
steal that.
steal a little bit.
Yeah.
See, I got it on my fingers, watch this. Gone and clean, ready to go back to work. And if that was CA, you would not be doing that, okay? So now I flip it over, and I go right on here, and you're like, but Brian, you've got paint there. You have to take the paint off. No, you don't, okay? You can do it. Not trying to beat anybody up if you take the extra time to do it. Trust me, I've built hundreds of planes. You don't have to do it. You can do it if you want, okay?
Yeah.
It's not necessary. It's just kind of like an extra added measure of protection if you really care. And this is a fast plane, guys. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this in. See, what's gonna happen is the best results are gonna be if this glue is cooked off, okay? So I'm gonna pull this in here tight and then just kind of rock it into position because you have to pierce the holes and you have to get penetration. But that little tail has to be on the inside, okay? There it is. So just stick it down, support the foam as much as you can as you're pressing, and then you're done. Frankly, I'm not sure why they didn't install these. This is a pretty easy install. I bet at the factory they would do it in like 30 seconds and it would be perfect. And I'm gonna do it in like 10 minutes and blab about it forever and it's gonna be imperfect. So I'm gonna take this clean end and watch this. Roll it and I'm gonna take it away and just say, yep. I'm gonna put a little bit here just to get rid of it. This you can wait if you want, but you see what I'm doing? Now I'm spreading it. That's what you don't wanna do, okay? Because it'll be ugly and you'll notice it. We're gonna let that cook off for a second. We'll stick this in and you'll notice what'll happen is over time as this stuff dries, sometimes it will puff out like a bulge of glue. You can sometimes grab it and just rip it off. Okay, other times it takes paint with it, all right? So hopefully we're answering a lot of like little nitty gritty questions that you guys have. So now I'm gonna stick this in here. We have glue on both surfaces and we're just gonna slide that in. Many times this sort of thing is assembled for us anymore on models. We used to have to do this for like every tiny detail on planes back when we started. About the most thing you would get is panel lines, but look at this, this is smooth all the way across the top of the wing, except for there and 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 there. Probably because that helps them get them out of the mold. So very happy because you used to see these things all the way across the model. And so that's super cool that those are kind of disappearing for us. Because they're not very desirable, if you ask me.
They have gotten a ton better.
Tons better. You see what I'm doing? I'm just rubbing this between my finger and my thumb, and I'm just gonna walk that off. Now I've got this thing back to where I can come in here and come back and clean, and it will literally just pick up the glue. But see, it's not cooked off enough. So it's not gonna literally just pull the glue off yet. We'll have to come back in a minute or two. But we're getting some of it, so we'll just get a little bit at a time, and then it'll be done. Now, the only reason you would do that is if you care about the finish of your plane. If you don't care, just let it dry. It's gonna be clear anyway. All right, so hopefully we've answered every question you ever had and then more about foam to foam and China glue from FMS. No, it doesn't say China glue when you get it. It comes in a white unmarked package and it could be anything. So just don't eat it. Don't use it as toothpaste. I promise that will be a bad outcome. All right, so that being said, we got to get this wing installed and then I'll come back and clean up that edge. So we probably need to cut these things free right there. We've got a bunch of wires. Camera crew, if you want to point at those. Those wires are going to be the wires that need to be passed through the wing. Now I noticed that they didn't send a Y cable, so it's probably already installed. Now some of you are thinking, oh, I want flaperons, or I want full length, you know, flaps or whatever. No, just don't do that on this plane. You don't, first of all, you don't need it. Second of all, if you want it, oh, you don't need a Y cable because this thing must join them together. Huh, I guess, I don't know. Does it? I can't remember. Flaps. Why do they never mark the ailerons? I hate that. Yeah, this is like a little Y cable thingy. So now that I cut that, I'm realizing I could leave this bundled up nicely. So you see what I did? I cut the wrong side of the zip tie. If I would have cut here, I could have salvaged it.
I cannot believe you did that.
I can't believe it. I'm gonna get another zip tie, guys. So cable management is not exactly something that I super enjoy, but I do it because I'm anal retentive. And so if you guys have ever seen our videos, you'll understand. Sometimes it's a little worse than others. I'd like to maybe tie this, but we'll see how it goes. I've got that zip tie when I'm ready, if I need it, okay? So next step, if you could, let me get next to the plane, that'd be super handy.
I'm trying to film.
So I am going to now slide this in, and you guys see this. Look at that yellow wire. Point at it with your finger.
I see the yellow wire.
What does that mean?
Thrust reverse.
Yep, we can do thrust reverse. If you get a Predator ESC and it doesn't have the yellow wire, it just has the red, white, and black. Without the yellow, you don't have the thrust reverse option, okay? If you want to take out the ESC and put it in Avian, then you can also support the Avian through the smart circuit, if you will, which is like a serial circuit. So basically, you could control it through the radio system and activate it through additional channels above the pluggables, which is nice. On this, you actually need to consume a pluggable channel because you got to plug that yellow wire as signal into one channel. And I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do. Let's talk about channels now. We got throttle, elevator, ailerons, flaps, gear,
Rudder.
Mode would be 7, thrust reverse would be 8 if you want to have a selectable mode. Now, why would you want selectable mode? Selectable mode is gonna get you, we don't need a selectable mode because we can use channel 7, 8, 9, 10 for any of those things for us because we're gonna use AS3X and safe, which means this thing is gonna be rock solid, laser refined.
But we still have 6 pluggable channels just from control surfaces.
That's true. That's true. So I got to think on this for a second. So if one wanted to use thrust reverse, one would have to use additional channels. So are we going to put an 8-channel receiver in here?
An 8360T?
An 8360T.
Seems a little overkill.
Seems a little overkill. It's a lot more money too. So if you guys are buying this model and you're putting an 8360T, I'm just going to tell you, if you go with 637T, there's only like a $15, $20 difference between a 637T, which gets you telemetry and all the bells and whistles and AS3X and safe. You go up to the 8360T for like 15 bucks extra, you get 2 more pluggables, which would be nice in this application. But it might be a bit of a stretch because you can get into the 631 and the 630 for quite a bit less, giving up some of the telemetry. However, you would get the telemetry too, which means you got pack voltage then. So if you're putting an Avian in here, and if you're taking out that Predator ESC, which is gigantic, I think it's 85 amp ESC, then I would probably go with the 631 for sure. Because then you don't have a pluggable channel involved. And you still get telemetry, you still get your battery pack voltage through the smart technology. But I think in our case, gosh, do you really want to not have thrust reverse? This thing did carry a long ways, if I remember right.
Thrust reverse would be kind of nice on this. It's just...
Yeah, so it's kind of a tough call, guys. There's times that we talk about these things and you might be thinking that we're waffling, and really what we're trying to do is we're trying to help you guys follow along our thought process, because sometimes we've had people accuse us of not telling us about the why. Look at this. They didn't put a singular plug, they put a regular plug. That's kind of cool and interesting. Normally it's just like a single plug. And this is like a regular plug. They must have had about a bunch of bind plugs sitting around that day. I'm gonna think on that while we continue the assembly.
Yeah.
Let's think on that for a minute.
Okay.
Before we get all this wire mess in here, why don't we go ahead and grab this and let's make our next modification to the original plan. And that is gonna be using Amazing Shelf Liner. Shelf liner is one of the easiest things you can do to add a little bit of security to your battery without going so far as to add disgusting Velcro to your battery pack. Because I hate Velcro on my batteries, and yet I do it still, okay? Why do I not like Velcro? Because Velcro makes a mess of the battery. What the heck, that thing's stuck in there.
It's way up there too.
Oh, there it is. Whoa, don't cut your hand off, okay? We'll talk about that later when we get into the radio setup portion, because we're gonna talk about safety as we go. Battery safety is the other big thing. Don't overcharge LiPos. Don't charge them too fast. Don't discharge them too fast, and all those normal things. Now, the other thing about this plane that I had forgotten, but I'm just remembering, is that they put a huge connector in here because this is an EC5, and an EC5 is an unusual size for such a small plane. Here's why. Because it's a gigantic ESC.
Yeah.
Okay? So that means that we may have to either cut this off and put on a more appropriate sized adapter that is then not really qualified for 6S. This is designed for 4S, right?
I don't actually know.
I'm pretty sure it's a 4S rated plane. Okay, let's see what we say.
We just threw caution to the wind last time down there.
Look, right here, 80 amp. I said 85, I meant 80. Yeah, it's rated for 14.8, which would be 4S, not 6S. But that's okay because, you know, we'll do what we want. If it catches on fire, we'll take the responsibility for catching on fire.
We only have like one 4S battery with
4S, 2200?
IC5 on it. Not a 2200, no.
That's
Yeah,
a 3200
that's what I was
6S.
thinking of.
But that's huge, though. I would not
No.
use a battery. How big did they want it? They wanted 2600 4S?
Yes.
2600 4S, they ain't gonna have that
Not
type of
with
end on
that
it.
end on it.
You have to
Well-
go up to a 5000 6S to have an IC3 or IC5.
Do you have an adapter?
I could build an adapter.
Oh, yay.
So we had a helicopter not too long ago that came with these batteries, 1300 6S 40C. These are probably gonna make an appearance in this video. That's 40C. They called out 35 plus C, right?
Yes.
Keep in mind when you're on 6S, you know, you're gonna be really cruising if you put that in this, but it is after all a racing plane, a pylon plane. Yes, I do have adapters that will allow me to go from an IC3 or an EC3 to an EC5, okay? So I'll show you how this works. I built this, I believe. I don't think I bought it. I don't think it was like sent to us or anything. So yeah, so that one goes in here. I just built this. Okay. Yes, see, amazing, right?
Okay.
So then I can go, oh, by the way, I just wanted to point out something. You see this glue? We talked about the glue earlier. I'm jumping around a little bit, guys. Watch, the glue's starting to penetrate. It's starting to come out and it's all, you know, set up now. A little bit more set up. Look, it's just gonna come right off of the wing. But you do have to take the time to do this if you care. And I kind of care because I got a little bit greedy on how much I put on there. See that? Now it's gone. You can actually pull it from deep within the crack. What you want to do is just dive the tip in and just give it a little wiggle and then spin it. And then just in, oh yeah.
Ooh.
Sometimes she'll scream at you a little bit when you do that. Okay, so just stick it down. You see how it's stuck? And then just spin it. And it'll just pull it right out of that joint. Okay, there's a little bit I got on the wing there. Just kind of stick it to it and just walk it off. Ah, I pulled the paint in that one spot. Are you kidding me? So if that ever happens, you can touch it up with a marker. But honestly, I'd rather have the glue gone and have to touch it up with a blue tipped marker. Should be no problem. And there you go, guys. So that's gonna get you all cleaned up. And you can make it as perfect or as imperfect as you want. Because if you're watching Brian Phillips RC, we know that you guys can tolerate some imperfection. But that being said, we do love doing this. If you want to help support Brian Phillips RC, the best way you can do it is buy stuff from the links, because that's how we support our giant RC projects, including huge ponds and stuff.
Just currently covered in snow.
Currently covered in snow. All right, so watch this. This is stuck down and it's going over a gap. That's not an acceptable place, okay? So no soup for you, because you see what happened when I pulled that off? There's the ESC. This needs to go up further, first of all. And second of all, it's bridging a gap where a hot ESC is going to live, okay? This is going to be stuck in further. And it's gonna be a little awkward to do, and then I'm gonna set it down. That was quality control failure right there. And when I say quality control failure, it's not that big a deal to fix, but it is annoying, okay? So yes, that did happen. Secondly, I know that loading the battery in this plane is not one of my favorite things about this particular plane. I remember it was hard because it's a smaller plane, and I just have a certain size hand. You know, it's like your hands are as big as your hands are, and the hole is as big as the hole is, and if you gotta stick your thing into the other thing, eventually you're gonna cause a conflict. There are certain parameters that we don't control, and that's one of them. All right, now, if you knew that you were only gonna be using one pack, you just stick this on the battery that you're gonna use and it's done, okay? Everybody's happy with that. This is an intense plane. It will go very fast. You wanna have it secure, okay? But I'm gonna tell you this will help. It will do the job. And then we can do it with half as much Velcro. Save that for another
I did
project.
that the other day on a plane. I cut the Velcro in half.
That's
Should be
amazing.
proud of me.
See? Look, boom. It's not even the right size. Look at this. Look at all that wasted shelf liner. Amazing.
Please do not cut that off and do it.
I was thinking about it just to annoy you, but then I was like, nah, nope, I've already used up all those points today.
Yep.
See, backing comes off, stick it to the thing, and then you're done, right? Now, why does that work so good? Because this stuff goes between two slick surfaces and stops it from sliding, okay? It just works. That's all I got to say. And it works every time it's tried. The only drawback we found with this particular solution is that A, you have to have a giant roll of shelf liner sitting around, which for us is pretty normal. And then B, by the way, it's like, I think that was like $11. Is that on our supplies page?
Yeah, it is. I think it was actually less, but I don't know. It's cheap and it lasts forever.
I know, forever.
Yeah.
For airplanes, because you only use like a little tiny piece of it.
Yeah.
But that stuff's designed to do like a kitchen.
But our son pulled a plane out the other day and it was an old one. And before we did the shelf liner, and that was the first thing we did was put shelf liner in it before he got his battery ready to go.
Didn't I do one the other day too?
I don't know.
It had plastic on it. What was it? I'm trying to remember what plane it was. We did second thoughts on it. Anyway, all I know is I can stick this down now and it will Velcro into position. And the idea is you want that kind of like under where the straps are, right? So once it's under where the straps are, all you have to do is apply enough pressure to make a bite point. And it's just, you know, instead of having to have enough force to keep two slick surfaces from sliding, and that friction is just very limited because it's slick on a wood, you know, like a balsa wood or basswood or whatever that is, plywood, it's gonna slide. As soon as you put that stuff, it just sticks. And instead of having to have 13 pounds of pressure to hold it in, you gotta have like 3.
Well, and I was just thinking when you were saying that, I don't know why this has never really dawned on me. You're strong enough that when you Velcro it, you'll like break the tray sometimes.
I do.
Because you can do it
all the time.
And like with our son, it's harder for him to get him super tight. Or if you have arthritis or something like that in your fingers and you can't pull the Velcro as tight.
True.
You don't have to do that when you have the shelf liner.
We've also learned something that is admittedly difficult for us on certain planes. If it's hard to load a battery, you'll fly it less.
Yeah.
So if we have trouble loading a battery, take it worth a grain of salt.
Even if you have 3 planes, you're still going to choose that third plane less.
You will. It will get in your head. You'll be like, I don't want the hassle. I'm just going to get something that's big enough to put my hand in. Okay? All right. I'm putting the prop on now because I can.
What?
I'm just really trying to drag this out.
Jeez.
Okay? So here is how this is going to work. Now, if in any doubt, if you have any safety concerns, I've cut myself one time on a prop. And it was an ultra micro plane that's not out anymore right now.
Not.
It was an Aero Commander. I was doing some crazy things, installing a second bound to the same transmitter DSMX receiver. I was trying to reprogram an ESC. I did everything backward, upside down, and inside out, and I still managed to get just a little cut. If you get a cut on this plane, it's not going to be a little cut. If you get a cut on that plane, it's not going to be a little cut. If you get a cut on the yellow one, it's not going to be a little cut. By the way, the yellow one's made by FMS for E-Flight. One of my favorites. Okay, slide this on, octagonal, goes over. The only reason we say that is because this is the point where you can pull the ripcord and say, Brian, I'm not experienced enough. I got to deviate from your plan. Pull the ripcord, parachute down safely. You'll live. I promise. It's going to take you a few extra minutes, but for the sake of time, since we're always about efficiency on Brian Phillips RC, we are going to do this right now.
Come back to minute 59 and you can put your prop on when
Yeah, it's really not that hard. Just slide this on. This is going to go back finger tight. You want to kind of guide this up into, you see the bottom of this? Guide it into that position. And as you torque it down, you want to make sure that it seats so that you've got a nice smooth. Are you showing that?
Yep.
Okay. Then you can take a screwdriver, which I happen to have. Hey, screwdriver, I just put away. So too big. When the tip does not slide in, that's the problem you have. I'm going to use a 2 millimeter because that should be what we need for the next step, right? 2 millimeters. Yep, perfect. So we'll slide this in, doesn't matter top or bottom, just, what the heck?
Wow, how does that not fit?
Yeah, I know, that usually fits.
It does.
Does it? Did I try the other side? Nope. I guess
I'll...
I'll...
Tool shop.
Tool shop, guaranteed for life to fail. We use a lot of tool shop. Look at the bend in the screwdriver, it's like, whoop.
That's because you use it.
What the heck? That even won't go in there. Okay, whatever, we're gonna just tighten it. I'm getting sick of dealing with it. Okay, so that's started. Ooh, man. It got stuck in there. That's crazy. You know why? There's a bunch of glue on it.
Oh.
I'm gonna go to the German size. 2 millimeter fits totally. Totally.
We have lots of those on our supply list too.
We do. Yeah, we do. And seriously, guys, if you buy stuff from the links, it helps support our channel. That's how we afford to do projects like our pond and things like this. And we really appreciate you doing it, okay? There you go, beautiful, wonderful. Helps us to get covered for our time because we do put a lot of time in it. You can see how this sits. We already kind of showed that. Look at that, perfect fit. Beautiful finish, by the way. Absolutely perfect, perfect match.
Yep.
Okay, we have one of these that's gonna slide in, grab the 2 millimeter drive and screw this in. And you'll notice that I'm using this Chinese one and not the German one. The German one is really nice, but I like the length. And I like these handles better. And yeah, I think we linked to these. But we got these as a gift from one of our subscribers. And we got those as a gift from one of our subscribers because they got tired of watching us use crappy tools. So thank you. We appreciate it.
The German, the willow ones or whatever.
Really nice.
Sometimes those, even though you like the handles, are too tall.
That's true.
In a tight spot. So we do still use those other ones.
Yes, that's also true. Okay, all right, continuing on. By the way, if you're watching this video and you're like, geez, Brian, you can't stay on track, I can't handle it. It's too hard for my brain to handle you bouncing around like a squirrel. You know what? This might not be the hobby for you. Because I'm gonna just warn you, when you build your first plane, you'll understand. You will just run into things and have to respond. I promise I don't do it to drive you nuts. I do some things to drive you nuts, but not that. Yeah. This is the way it works in the real world for me, okay? Because we try our best to make a systematic approach to building these planes. And to be honest, they're all just a little bit different.
Right.
And I don't like working harder than I have to. That's why I explain things that I don't have to. Every time I get a chance. Which, okay, so you see this? Look. So that, I'm just kind of wiggling the wires to make them straight. And once they're straight, I need to drop this in like this. And it's just kind of like, usually there's a knob that goes into the front, but not on this one. And be careful not to squish this with your fingers. So you just kind of got to get your fingers in just the right spot. You guys see what I'm doing? I'm just going to guide them. Okay. Now they're in the hole. Now I can just very carefully drop it into position and walk it back. And look at this. This is where you want to be careful because if you push this and squish all that, your paint will look like crap. It's gonna make a nasty edge. Those two lips are just gonna go, oh, it's gonna drive you nuts. Every time you see it, you'll be like, darn that Brian Phillips, RC, you didn't warn me. Okay, 2 millimeter drive, put it on the tip, hold it with your finger, find the first hole, screw it in. Do you see how I'm grabbing the thin part of the shaft? That's so I can start it, not so I can finish it. Once I get it started, guys, this is the way it should work. And you wouldn't believe how many planes we've built from how many manufacturers, up to and including FMS, where all 4 holes do not line up. That's because over time, they have gotten to the point where they just make plastic jigs that hold all these foam parts together, and they expand the bite point from like one little screw or one little screw with one little hole to now having a couple of screws and a large surface that helps adapt all this. And guess what's right under that? All the carbon fiber reinforcements. For those of you, and we mentioned this earlier, gross, for those of you saying, oh, it's just a foam cup. Let me tell you something. Do you have carbon fiber and steel in your foam cup? Because if you do, you have a weird foam cup. These things are engineered marvels of technology, given the fact that this thing's gonna go like well over 100 miles an hour. Unless that's illegal for some reason, then it's gonna go just under whatever the legal limit is.
Yes.
Then it's gonna go that fast. Amazing planes, amazing finish. Now, I wanna show you how to tell these are tight. Look at the pucker. Also, you'll notice that we bolted everything together except for the parts that we didn't.
Right.
It used to be all this crap would be glued together. Look at the puckers. The puckers are my first sign of tightness. Now, if you get all of these done and there's no puckers, you probably didn't go tight enough. You'll see the pucker line start. You hear the noise. Mm-hmm. And then you'll see the puckers. There's the puckers. They're starting because you're gonna dig this piece of plastic into the foam. This one's already tightened a little bit, okay? Find the hole, find the hole. Come on, you can do it. There it is, oh yeah.
So did they not used to jig the receivers for the nut or the
Well,
bolts
it depends on if you're talking about FMS or Dynam.
Well, I was gonna say, has no one told Dynam that
Dynam
this
still
is a
hasn't
thing?
figured it out. They're working on it.
Okay.
So, and we make fun of Dynam all the time, and here's why. Because they're one of these manufacturers that's just totally tone deaf. They will hear 1,000 influencers say, there's a problem here, and they will ignore. And then they will hear 10,000 customers say, there's a problem here, and they'll just keep making it. On generation 4 of the same release. That just drives us nuts. We eventually just can't handle it ourselves. So that's why we don't.
Which is a bummer because they make
some
planes
cool models
that nobody else makes.
Yeah. But they just don't do a very good job of it.
You have to really, 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 really.
You have to try hard to suck that bad for that long, okay? And the truth is, we try desperately not to badmouth any of these manufacturers. Dynam is just so easy because they have done a good job of being tone deaf for so many decades on the same models. And that's one thing that we love about FMS and we love about E-flite and Horizon and all these different brands that we work with. They do eventually listen after years. You'll note there's no LEDs on this. Take it for what it's worth. But there are inboard flaps and retracts. Mm-hmm. Used to preach this big game when we first got into this RC stuff. I want flaps, I want retracts, I want LEDs. Otherwise, you're dead to me. Except it wasn't quite that bad. And the reason it wasn't quite that bad is because then I would put it in myself. Retracts were the hard part because retracts are heavy, retracts are expensive, and they take a channel. So people don't always have that extra channel, and therefore, that's where we are left. By the way, this thing is pointed in a kind of a weird angle today. Should be down and to the right usually, and if you look at this, it's kind of like not. I hope it doesn't have like an insane P factor. Do you see what I'm talking? You're not gonna see it from over there. It's over here is where you're gonna see it. See the overlap here? Right here. See the overlap here? And then you see the underlap here? That's very weird. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. When you see an airplane if this was 90, what are you doing, cat? Get off of the table. So it's going straight forward like this. This is pulling the plane forward, right? Well, that's not the way it works. It's gonna basically flip you up and over or flip you up and over. Well, it's usually pointed down and to the right, okay? To help eliminate some of that P factor that you get under high torque load at the beginning. This is a plane that will do it. The V1200 will do it. The V900 will do it. Like, it will flip itself over, okay? Because there's a moment in the throttle curve where it will just want to kill itself, okay? You don't want them to kill themselves. That's why they usually point these down and to the right. And some planes are extremely down and to the right. Let's see if we can show them one example before we continue. No, we can't show them that. There's no prop on that. I don't think that one's gonna show very good.
I don't think it's, yeah, it doesn't.
Do we not have a good example? What about the Cherokee? Let's show them on the Cherokee 1.3. Beautiful plane, amazing product from E-flite, probably made by FMS. You can't tell on this one, dang it.
No.
Which ones do we have up here? I don't think you're gonna be able to tell on any of these. Okay, well, anyway, just take my word for it, guys. I'm sorry, we don't mean to leave you high and dry on stuff like that. But the truth is, you're gonna get this downward angle and it's gonna help avoid that P factor. Also, the Cherokee's just not like an amazing, like crazy,
it's not an
aerobatic
pylon racer.
It is with 4S. Could be. But see, this thing will do 6S.
Spill your coffee.
It's not really supposed to, but it will. Okay. All right, that being said, getting back to the point. We gotta have room to mount a receiver. Oh, goodness gracious. 8 channels? Really? Ooh, this is kind of killing me, guys.
Can I show them the
yes,
inside
please do.
while you're thinking, while you're waffling?
Well, and that's the thing is we got to fit a pretty big battery in here. 2600 4S? That's a big battery, hon. Couldn't we just do 2200 4S and call it good?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we could.
Because 2600 4S.
Insane.
Huh?
It's not going to be insane.
Yeah, but 2600 4S is a big battery for that opening.
I know.
I just don't know if we have room for it, hon. Because if you go to okay, so here's an example of a 5000 4S, okay? So that has the right size battery lead. Now, what other plane uses 5000 4S? Pop quiz. It's an FMS product, 1400 millimeters, P40. And it has this ESC end on it as well, okay? So you can do that if you have this. This battery is my most underutilized battery of like all my 4S
But will
batteries.
that even fit in here?
It's way bigger than they call out.
I don't know.
Like to the tune of almost double. It's 2600 is what they call out.
Yeah.
So if you have a 2600 4S, congratulations. That is 3250C 4S. That might be what we have to do for the proper size. Because I just don't know that I've got a 2600 4S.
You have like a 2700 or something weird.
3200. That we have.
That might not be bad though.
That might not be a bad size.
As big as the
we have an
5000.
Arrows product that's 3300.
Well, but then we just do this one.
Yeah, I would do that one. And then we'll pause and come back. So the camera crew was going on and on about the 2600. And I was like, you can't keep saying
2700.
Oh,
I said
that's
2700.
Right. 2700. So she was right.
You said there's no such thing.
On a rare occasion. That's 4S 2700.
It's only
okay,
a
so
30C, but that's good.
30C, good enough for me. All right, guys, let's talk about charging. We're gonna plug this into the charger. Guys, look at the sun. This is why we don't film at this exact time of day. All right, so we're gonna stick this in the hole, boom. And then this is a smart battery cell, boom. Right there, stick it where you want it. Now, let's talk about this. 3250C Gen 2, oh, task timeout. You know what happens when you get a battery that does task timeout, okay? It could be that we have a cell that's out of, oh yeah, that's probably what's going on, guys. Let's look at this, watch this. I'm gonna show you how to fix this if you need to. First of all, this battery, oh, there's no excuse for your task timeout.
Yeah.
Don't give me that crap. If you ever have it do task timeout on you, this happens to me occasionally. The way I usually fix it is I power cycle, turn it on, let it fully boot. Now, also the S155 would be fine for this plane if you're doing 4S. We're gonna be doing 6S as well, okay? So we're gonna plug in this first. Insert balance lead. Now you can ignore that command if you want and just hit charge anyway, or initiating smart charge as soon as it goes. If it goes to task timeout, there might be an issue with the firmware, but I think it's gonna go this time because you can see it's getting up to charge. Do you know what I did wrong, camera crew? Tell the people what I did wrong.
You plugged the balance lead in first.
You might need to go over there.
I know.
Okay, I'm gonna just plug in this 3250C as well, okay? So there's that.
But is that why though? Because you plugged the balance lead in first?
I think what I did was I plugged this in and then I plugged that in and then I plugged this in.
And sometimes if you don't let this actually start,
it will task timeout. Okay, now I'm gonna start this one and I'm gonna just show you on a Gen 2. During the boot sequence, if you plug in too quick, sometimes you'll get to a task timeout too. But in this case, it seemed to start up okay. Pretty cool. And then also, I think I'm probably, when I start, I don't know, do we even, like, how the heck did we get these batteries? These came with a helicopter. I can't remember which one.
I don't know. We'll have to look. I'll have to look it up.
Do we have to do a PSA?
What? About
these guys?
I would. Not recommended.
We would not recommend them. They burned us. They burned us. When you buy from the links, we get support through commissions from companies. Sometimes these companies burn us, meaning they never pay us.
Yeah.
They never paid us. But it's okay. I mean, it's not even that much money. And I'm not like that worried about the money on that one because it's like a small amount. But it's more about the principle. If companies are willing to screw us over, they're willing to screw you over.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're like afraid to even talk about it anymore, but we used them and we kind of like specifically did a torture test in the Voodoo.
Yeah.
And it worked fine other than the fact that it looks like whoop, this now. And that was that was totally our doing. So I don't mean to beat them up over that. I mean to beat them up over the fact that they don't make right on their commitments.
And if they don't communicate with us, and if you have an issue, we assume
you're going to be
they're not going to communicate with you.
High and dry, which is not cool. We aren't about that. By the way, didn't need the zip tie.
Not
so that's
yet.
pretty cool.
Well, yeah, because
it's underneath. There was plenty of room by the ESC for that bundle of wires.
Okay.
All right, so the reason that we were working through charging batteries, let's talk about the charging of batteries. The reason we did that is because the battery is going to dictate where the receiver can fit, okay? And the battery is also going to dictate what else?
The CG.
Yes, and it's going to dictate...
I mean, where it fits dictates how much room we have for the receiver, which dictates which receiver we use.
And if it dictates which receiver we use, it's going to dictate whether or not we can take advantage of thrust reverse.
Right.
As it is installed currently. Which sucks because I don't like making decisions about the end game of an airplane, like how good the airplane is going to be based on if there's room. So again, Brian Phillips RC, we're one of the few that's going to bring you the entire start to finish process. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to make a decision with your RC budget, whether that's $500 a month or $200 a month or whatever you have in your bank account today, or $1 billion or whatever, you know, everybody's in different spots for different reasons. That's fine. That's not what we do on this channel. But what we are going to tell you is this. If you don't have room for a receiver, it might undermine your ability to get the maximum value out of this plane. So we're going to try to give you guys the best crack at success. And part of doing that is working through these challenges. This is a technical challenges, make no mistake. Camera crew is going to come around. Okay, so let's just talk about this out loud for a minute. Obviously, we have a throttle channel. We have an elevator. Okay, we have a flap.
Aileron is the unmarked.
Then we have a gear. Where's the rudder?
It's taped to the side down here.
Oh, okay. Why is it taped?
I don't know. I just happened to notice that from the other side.
Probably because it's way back there. They don't want you to lose it. Okay. So here's the rudder. Here's the elevator. So the elevator, yeah, that's just not a cool way to do that. I don't like the way they did this. I'm gonna go get some forceps and we're gonna solve that problem right now. Camera crew, please be careful of this piece of tape.
Yeah. You don't like that it's...
No. I definitely don't. Definitely don't.
Well, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna show them how to fix it. Obviously, what would you think I was gonna do? Look, guys, forceps, hemostats, forceps. We have these linked. Just whatever brand you pick. Whatever you decide is fine.
Where do you think I'm going to see this?
I'm gonna try to go like this. Okay. So in order to go like this, I have to pass this under and through. Okay.
Oh.
So look at this. See this? Look. See, I clicked it once. And then I'm gonna pass this back here, and then I'm gonna bring it in like I'm trying to tie. Oh man, that's gonna be tough. I gotta go the other way. I gotta go like this, folks. Now look, you're not gonna be able to get that clipped without crushing this connector. Okay. So I don't wanna drop this. It'd be a nightmare to get it back out, so I'm about to do that. So just point and laugh when it happens. Guys, you ready? Ready, go. Okay, now watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to bring this up here, and I can see it's in the hole. And there's a good chance the camera crew can't see this. Oh man, that's gonna be tough. You know what I'm gonna do? And take the plane. Now you need to be out of my way when I do this.
Yep.
Up we go. Let gravity help. Please, gravity, don't burn me like you've done so many other times every time I check a scale. Come on now, get in there. Ooh, I reached around the two wires that go to the linkages and I actually can get a bite on it. Okay, so now I'm just sliding through there. Camera crew's doing the best she can, guys. Give her a break. Camera crew and Brian Phillips RC are doing our best to get you a shot of this very critical step. Now, it's through, it's next to the body of the servo. So now I can lay this back down. We'll try to put it at a bit of an angle. Camera crew, one of the best in the industry, is gonna make it happening, right?
Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome. Okay, so now I've turned the wire and I'm just engaging this into this tight spot. Oh yeah, we made it through the hole. Okay, then we can grab it. Yes! Now I can go through and replicate that exact scenario, only doing it here. Now, if you guys don't understand why that's important, I'm gonna explain why in like 3 seconds, okay? That, first of all, that should have been done at the factory, A. And B, now I don't have to worry about getting tangled up in this thing, also known as a servo. You remember how I warned you about getting stuck on the tape?
This thing. Yeah.
This tape touched me. My private parts. I'm throwing it away. Throwing it away right now. So, speaking of receivers, we're gonna talk about receivers. We're gonna have a frank conversation now. If you guys haven't ever been to Brian Phillips RC, you won't understand. We toil over some things in life, and one of them is receiver choice.
And
okay,
all
631, that's what I was originally planning on using. Nothing wrong with it, great receiver. 630, nothing wrong with it, great receiver, but internal antenna, couple bucks difference between this and that. Probably, just depending on where you're flying. We would be fine probably with the antenna-less solution. But if you have any concerns about interference, I'd probably go 631, okay? However, you'll note that that's an end pin and this is a top pin. That might make a difference on this particular model because of the size and available room. Now, why do we keep freaking out over the size? Because when we go to stick a huge battery in here, we gotta be able to get it in there, okay? It's not like it just, you know, drop it in and it's done. No, we gotta get it in there, okay? And if it's hard to load a battery, you're not gonna fly the plane. Now, there is a possibility that we could stick the receiver into this opening. That might not be a terrible idea. See? You wanna come over here? See this right here? You could put those receivers flat along here, and then you would still have room to get a battery. But you gotta remember, when you start sticking fat batteries in, which are 6S are pretty fat. Let's say that we use this for our like torture test, okay? This battery is pretty thick. Not quite as thick this way. There happens to be some Velcro on there, but it's the same style. Unfortunately, which is fine. That's part of the reason why I don't like Velcro. So if you stuck this in there, that would go in, but then you got this big honking son of a gun right here.
That receiver is so big.
But do you want to give up thrust reverse?
I know.
I don't want to give up thrust reverse. I'm so torn.
And you're not gonna get that underneath that little tray.
And if you take the wing off and you mount the wing wires underneath, like where the ESC is under the tray, then you got to be able to reach these back under the tray. Is there a gap here? There is a bit of a gap there. I wonder if you could do that. See this, guys? I'm talking about right here.
Oh, goodness gracious.
See, because if you did that, the problem is then you have to have a huge extension cable to be able to do all the wiring underneath. That's just impractical, guys. You could do it if you wanted. You could put this underneath the tray. It could be mounted on top of the wing, and then you could put the wing in when you're done. But you gotta have an extension cord for your elevator and your rudder to actually then reach however far you need to work with. It's gonna be very impractical. Now, secondly, this is the telemetry lead, that red and black one. It's gonna plug into this micro pH connector right there. And then that's gonna be tied into this wire somewhere. Which would, what?
Well, keep going, but then I have a thought.
So that would be potentially under there, or you can slide these pins out, you can desolder and then just catch the solder on there. That's easier said than done.
Yeah.
So I usually just tap it and then just run back as a pair, okay? You also notice that this 6S has an XT60, okay? So yeah, 40C, not so much, probably not.
Okay, so since the 8360, wait,
Has end pins.
This isn't even the right one.
Oh,
By
it's an 8020T, sorry guys.
That's not the right
that
one.
one is the one without AS3X and safe. We'll grab the correct one.
But the 8360T is also end pin, right?
8360T is in fact the same as...
Okay, I don't think...
This doesn't have AS3X and safe. This one does. This is what I thought I grabbed. Same exact cabinet, by the way.
Yep.
Same case.
Same size, same everything.
Point the camera so they can see and read. Thank you. Same exact size, same exact function. Okay, so we're gonna keep the 8020T would be if we had a reflex installed, folks.
Yep, and still
then that would act
channel.
as a stabilizer.
I was just wondering, since it's end pin, if you could put it upside down here, but I don't think you have enough height because you're gonna run into your
the servo linkage.
servo linkage. I was hoping.
Unless we took that servo linkage and put it on the bottom, but then it's gonna hit itself when it actuates. Now I don't want to put a receiver on here because every time you take this off, and then you also have to keep in mind. See, all these wires have to have a home at some point. So when you put this on, this is gonna dig down in a certain depth. I don't think it quite reaches that shelf, but it might, okay? So if we mount that receiver flat right here, we have these wires that could potentially traverse underneath, but I'm not 100% sure if they do. I'm gonna get a zip tie to answer that question, and then we could just come back that direction. Do you follow what I'm saying, camera crew?
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think we're gonna limit our battery because then with the end pins, then all your wires are going out.
No, I could go this way. Look. Oh yeah, I found the spot. See this, guys? Look. Woo! Woo! Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that would give us access to that channel. And we're far enough away from the linkage and all that. I mean, this linkage could be bent or broken, cut or whatever when we're done if the rudder doesn't need it, okay? So that would mean that all this crap could come up here and then we could mount this. Unfortunately, then the antennas are gonna traverse forward.
Yeah.
They could be pulled back. Man, that's a pretty freaking huge receiver for this application. I'm so torn.
That's so much work for thrust reverse.
I mean, if you thrust it in, you gotta take it back out. I just feel like, I don't want to emasculate the plane if it's got thrust reverse.
We're not in the habit of giving up features, but we're also not in the habit of using some ridiculously oversized.
I don't know. I think that we need the feature. I think we show the feature, and it's going to be amazing. Don't you?
I don't really know why I have an opinion, but.
Well, the other thing is the red, the Dago red. Show them the Dago red.
Oh, yep.
This is the tough part for Megan and I right now, is that we have both of these sitting there.
Yeah, we do.
And we are going to do the other one as well, okay?
So maybe we do one.
But the thing is, I had trouble getting this thing down because of the thrust reverse.
Because of the lack of thrust reverse.
No, did I? I don't know. I can't remember with the Voodoo, to be honest.
Maybe we need to
The Voodoo has a silver spinner, and the Blue Thunder has a silver spinner. Show them quick.
Yep.
That is really cool. And by the way, the red Dago does too, or the Dago red.
I can't tell, or it almost looks white though.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's chrome.
No, it's chrome here. You can tell on this
it's
picture.
chrome.
Yeah.
So guys, with respect for our decision making, we apologize for being such big wafflers. I am super torn. The 630 definitely would be the best physical fit by a long shot on this model. But I think we're gonna do the 8360T. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay, all right, we'll be right back. All right, so NX10, 8360T. This is gonna give us all the channels we need. I pulled the staple out off camera. We cleaned up a little bit. Now we need to see if this thing fits. If it doesn't fit, we'll make a different decision, okay? So we pull this thing out of the package. If you guys are brand new to the channel, this is Brian Phillips, RC. Obviously, we do radio setup. We take it pretty seriously because this is one of the biggest, most expensive tools you're gonna have in your tool bag, which is gonna be your transmitter. We want you guys to get the value out of it that you can get, because this is the difference between success and failure. If you get a receiver that's not gonna give you auto leveling, you may not be able to fly a plane. If you get a receiver without AS3X, you may not like the way it flies. Good enough to fly it as much. Again, kind of thing, same thing about difficult to load batteries. If it's hard to load, you may not fly it. If it's hard to fly, you may not fly it. If it's easier to fly, you may love it. Maybe your favorite plane. If it's not tuned well, you may not like it at all. This is the battery lead. If you choose to use it, which we are on this model, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, so now let's see how this fits. First of all, it's not so much about how this fits as much about can it be in there and still load the battery effectively? And I think the answer to that question is yes, you can get it in there. It should be manageable. Now, this could also be mounted sideways like this, provided the canopy comes down. Now, I don't mind giving up a 1/4 inch of thickness on the canopy in that one position, but it just kind of depends on how the battery is going to slide through. I feel like it's kind of a net sum gain, but you got to remember, pulling a battery out when it's hot and you're done flying might be a little harder, a little easier said than done. But we do have a nice little pocket to get the antennas down there. I think you can actually mount it sideways. I don't know why you would. You can definitely mount it upside down on the sides any direction you want like this. And there are processes that we do in the forward programming to help indicate to this thing what direction you mounted it so it knows how to correct the flight surfaces, okay? For AS3X and then for safe as well. So I think on this one, we'll probably go ahead and put it here, leaving enough room for the wires to come out. Except if we went this way, all we would have to do is pass just 2 wires under. And I don't even know if we have enough length to do that, but honestly, they could just come around if they reach. So let's just go ahead and guess and check. So let's say the elevator goes on port. How do we know what direction it is? Minus is on the bottom here. Signal is on the plus and plus is in the middle, okay? Let's just see if that's on channel.
Should be 3.
3, usually. And we'll show you how to confirm that. I put that in upside down. Okay, so the yellow or orange wire goes to the top. And then the redder, we'll come back and show you how to figure this out later, but we'll just try this for now and see if we have enough length. Okay, I don't even know that it's on channel 4. But as you can see, that would reach under the board, but it's gonna be hard to plug in, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and run that under the board.
It's gonna be hard to get it under the board because you're not gonna have very much
to work with.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see, if we do that, then I can put the antenna down here where they're away from the battery.
Yeah.
And when you go to pull the battery out, you're gonna be running into the wires and stuff. But if you go this way and you pull the battery out, you're gonna be running into the antenna. I would rather not run into the antenna, folks, because if you run into the antennas wrong, you'll compromise the plane's capability to fly. If you run into the wires wrong and you damage the wires, you'll compromise the plane's ability to fly. But you're less likely to break all those wires or enough of those wires to make a difference. Whereas if you break these antenna, you're gonna break the capability to fly. And it'll be an emergency, scary, like I didn't know it was bad kind of thing, okay? So we're gonna go this route. Now, I've just happily left this thing in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this the easiest way I know how, which is gonna be to tape the antenna, or excuse me, not the antenna. I'm gonna tape the servo ends onto the zip tie and just pass them under because it just happens to be under there, okay? So we just need to have a little bit exposed. We can just tape this on here. Camera crew is gonna try her best to give you guys a shot of what you need to see here. And I'm gonna do my best to not interfere with her ability to do that. But just full disclosure, when these planes are small, it is pretty hard on my back to do this. Okay, so I'm just gonna try the easy way first and see if we get lucky enough. Remember, just one at a time is all we need to actually do. And this is gonna tangle, so maybe it'll just catch and pull it through. If we're super lucky, that's exactly what'll happen. But we're not super lucky, but look, it did work, okay? So now I just need to untape this, which this is where the forceps come into handy. Okay, so we're gonna grab with forceps. Now you guys may notice the sun dropping over the horizon. This is one of the unfortunate realities of winter, and also Brian Phillips RC, because we do so many planes, we need time to set them up before the sun sets. But in this case, it's probably not a big deal, because if you show them that whipping windsock.
Yeah, it's a little windy.
It's a tidbit windy and nipply.
It is.
It's cold.
Yeah, it is.
So, all right, so without further ado, we're just pulling this tape off. And that tape worked really good, but it also made it kind of obnoxious to undo. I'm actually gonna leave that tape right where it is so that it can kind of make it a little bit harder to knock back in the hole, okay? I'm gonna slide this zip tie back through so we have more room to work with. And then I'm gonna just take another little slather of tape. This time, we have a little bit more to work with, so it should be pretty easy to do. I don't know if you guys can tell, this process is obviously well thought out. I mean, I spent hours thinking it through. Just kidding, guys. I came up with it spur of the moment as we were filming the video. But I have run a lot of wires through a lot of weird spots, both professionally and amateurly. Okay, so now that we've got that through, I'm gonna go ahead and reach in here underneath the wire, very carefully grab and clamp so that I don't have to worry about that thing breaking free. Whoops, don't wanna grab the wires though, just wanna grab the connector body, and that'll help me undo the tape. Wonderful. Great, grand, wonderful. There, oh yes. Okay, so we have some tape, some jerk, put it in there. What, that was like the easiest wire pull we've ever done in the history of RC.
Not bad.
I thought you were complaining there. Okay, now let's talk about the next step. The next step is gonna be, normally on these planes that have the telemetry, I like to get this taken care of while it's easier. There's really not an easy way on this particular plane. So I'm just gonna unwind this cable, show you how long it is. It's quite long, okay? You might get this out of the package and think, that's not long enough to reach in my plane. Well, you've got a bigger plane than we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And remember, this is gonna be close to where your battery bay is because that's where your receiver generally goes. Okay, so you've got those nice, unkept wires, and I like to grab back here so that you don't yank them out of the micro pH connector there and just start twisting. Okay, once you get a little bit of twist, you've got a little bit of bite point to hang on to. And you're thinking, this doesn't seem like a radio setup, Brian. When's the radio setup, Brian? Well, I got this toilet wine all done. I want to drink it and watch the radio setup. It's my favorite part. Well, Mr. Prisoner, you'll have to wait longer. We haven't done the Prisoner for a while. That's like Bert's favorite thing.
I know. Sorry, Bert.
If you guys don't know who Bert is, he flew that thing in real life. He was the last pilot of the SR-71. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so he met me at RC Fest and he came up talking about toilet wine. And I was like, what's wrong with this guy? What a weirdo. And I was like, oh, he got that from me. But somebody had to tell me first because I was kind of being stupid. And that's okay.
Well, we didn't know who he was.
We didn't know who he was. Somebody else told us, hey, do you know who that is? And I was like, inmate number 1, 2, 3, 4? No, but it was funny. I got a chuckle out of that. So anyway, so you'll see this here, just kind of contorting the wires, and you see how it's not very tightly packed. If you go back through and just kind of give her heck, you can retighten those loosened areas. You can also put this into a chuck very carefully on a drill, and you can twist it. Now you're like, do you have to twist it like that? No, I've just done this for every single plane except for maybe the first one we did, knowing that it's just one more stupid wire in there.
Yeah.
Says the guy from prison. All right, there you go. Okay, so if you're watching from prison, leave it in the comments below. We'd like to hear your story.
Turn off commenting for prisoners.
Here it is. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit further up here. So it's like almost to the end. And then I'm just gonna back it off just a hair, right? And you're like, okay, so we gotta terminate those somehow. Now you don't have to do it up here. It's just we're doing it up here because that's kind of what works well. And you're like, but then that's gonna be something you have to deal with. Yes, I know that's true technically, but what I like to do is I will usually tap it and then I'll just follow one wire back and it really kind of becomes a non-issue, okay? Now you could also go down there, inside of there, and you could do it on the end of the ESC, but again, that's a lot of work. I don't wanna do that crap. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the next step, and you're thinking to yourself, geez, Brian, this is not radio setup. What are you talking about radio setup? Because it's all part of the radio that we chose, okay? So I'm gonna take and bite this with my forceps. You don't have to bite it with the forceps, but that's a good way to do it. And then I'm gonna take and I'm gonna pierce it. Oh yeah, we have penetration. Yes, and we are gonna have dual penetration. What? Dual penetration, huh? Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
I was just thinking, Miss America lets me do it. Oh my goodness, I'm in trouble now. All right, here we go. So, the dual penetration, here we go. Here we go. Ready? In. Ready, go. In. And you're thinking, goodness gracious, you can just force it in there? Yes, you can. And you're thinking to yourself, but Brian, isn't that going to be like 6S power there? You got all that potential. Listen, guys, potential without load equals nothing. If there's no load, if you become the load, the potential becomes an electrocution. What? Why are you looking at me like a weirdo? That was a perfect example.
Oh, it was amazing.
All of you electrical people out there, electricianes, please leave it in the comments below. We want to know what you did wrong to get into prison. Just kidding. But if you're in prison, leave that too. Okay, so black, here we go, black tape. And you're thinking to yourself, that is the most rinky-dink halfway thing you've ever done on this channel before in the history of time. Yes. Thank you for noticing. And also, I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that in there, and I'm just gonna tape it in. And you're like, but wait, no, seriously though, I was serious about the 6S thing. Okay, here's what I mean by, if there's no load, there's no potential. This is basically like taking a digital multimeter. You got your red and your black lead, and you put it on your battery. And it's like a 36 volt series pack that's in your semi truck. If you don't know what that is, that's 3 batteries in series. Anyway, so you touch that, it's 36 volts. It's enough to crank your diesel motor in the middle of the night at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so it's a lot of power, right? You touch that. Those leads don't catch on fire, do they now? Think on that. That's what's going on here. These are test leads that are going into a small electrical circuit. Now, do I want to lick the end of that? No, because then I become a giant resistive load and go. Now, I mean, that's if you're on 6S, but even 6S is only like 26 some odd volts. So if you're 36 volts and you got a battery the size of, you know, like this big, that's more power than the battery we're going to put in this plane. Right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for knowing that.
36 is more than 20 something.
36 is more than 20 something, but there's also other measures of battery performance, not the least of which is current rating. And the current rating is different than the voltage. Current is like, I don't want to talk about voltage anymore.
Okay.
I'm done talking about it for now. Current versus voltage. Voltage is amplitude, and current is also amplitude. It's just measuring a different thing, so whatever. We're not going to get into that. No more electronics class tonight. If you want more, go to Electric Boom Boom. What is his name?
That guy?
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
He's got millions of subscribers just by electrocuting himself and catching himself on fire routinely. I watched his video the other day. It was awesome. He's good stuff. All right, so now I need to relieve the pressure. Now there's a million different ways you could do this. You could do it with a zip tie. You could do it with tape. In this case, I'm going to use tape because I happen to have it here. If you ever have tape and you're like, I don't like all that messy stickiness, well, you can cut it in half and make it even worse. Okay? So now all I'm doing is just relieving the pressure, and yes, I am taping that only to the negative side because we paired it up in this beautiful way. And this vinyl electrical tape will do a great job of carrying this bundle back, this little bundle of joy, back into the inside of the belly of the beast. And we're gonna do that two more times probably. And then what's gonna happen is that will be allowed to then pop out and protrude. Oh my goodness! I almost dropped my servo wire that was hard fought getting through, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna stick it right there, right there. I'm gonna stick the other one right there too. You see what I did? Mm-hmm. See what I did there, camera crew? That's a pretty amazing idea.
That was.
It was well thought out. Should have done it before.
I can tell.
I wanted to give the audience a chance to come up with the amazing idea first.
They're all yelling at their computer.
Tape that thing down, Brian. Come on, man. Toilet wine. It's getting old, Brian. All right, here we go. So now this one here, remember how we said make it worse? We're gonna make this one also worse. If you get into a tight spot, I just wanna remind you, all you have to do is reach for forceps. Forceps, it's what people used for doobies in the day. If you don't know what doobies are, it's probably not allowed to be talked about on this channel. Okay, here it is. So you see what I'm doing? I use this because I don't want to have my hands in there. In that disgusting belly of the beast. Plus, we did the double holes earlier. Okay, see? Wow, amazing. Wow, wow. If I would have done this before I put the wing on, I could have taped that way down there and it would have been awesome. Awesome sauce.
Oh.
Okay?
But we didn't.
But we
Because we
didn't.
were still waffling then.
We were waffling, and you know, let me tell you something. I do like a good waffle with delicious syrup. Making me hungry. Dang it. Okay, that didn't work. I have to turn this sideways like this, and no, you don't have to use forceps to do this, but it does make many things easier. Okay. Okay, so there's that. And let go of the forceps. The tape is holding, doing its job, just like what you would expect. Now, the reason I didn't use zip ties here is because I only had like 1 or 2 zip ties of the size that I wanted, and so this will work just fine. And that last little tape joint was super, super halfway crappy. So I'm gonna slide this under, and I'm just gonna put the excess in until such a time as I feel like it's an appropriate amount sticking out of the bottom, okay? Now I'm gonna take my receiver like this, okay? And turn this plane just a little bit deeper. Camera crew is gonna give me room. My back is killing me. This is gonna go in. You see how there's a little bit of a line there? That little thingy right there. That thingy needs to go this way. Okay? If you stick it in and it doesn't go, you got it the wrong way, okay? So there's that. Now we can start plugging things in. But you need to know where to plug them in, Brian. How do you know where to plug them in? First of all, you see how long this wire is? That's not gonna stay like that forever. That's temporary. Eventually, that's gonna get tucked in here with all the excess, okay? And same is true for all the rest of the wires. So this install, no matter how terrible it was getting here, is gonna be amazing. Okay, next step. We have to set up the radio profile, the transmitter, the transceiver, if you will. I was thinking of something to say, I can't say it.
Okay.
It was gonna be hilarious. You guys would have loved it, but I can't say it. So I'm not gonna say it. So I don't wanna get kicked off YouTube.
Okay, don't do that.
Had to do with transceivers. I was doing what the trans topics on Brian Phillips RC. There you go.
Okay.
That's all right.
Just
falling on my sword right here. Okay, it's on. The transceiver is on. This is also known as a transmitter in most popular circles, okay? Wow, look at that. 3.7 volts, good Lord, I need to charge this thing.
You do.
Okay, so first thing we gotta do is we gotta hit cancel and back, boom. Scroll to the bottom, add new model.
We're almost to 200.
No, we're not, because we have more than that.
Well, that's true.
We have like 41 plus 196, which means we're almost out of model memory.
We are.
We're gonna have to go up to a NX20 or something, so we have a bigger screen.
Does it have more model number?
I have no idea if it has bigger memories. Is that what you said? Jeez. Camera crew's always getting me off track. Hold still, we're trying to film a video. Okay, so from model select where we just came out of, that's what cancel and back does, is it navigates you to here. So if you guys don't know how to do it, so here's your acro. You click, scroll all the way down to system setup, click disconnect RF, the light shuts off. Then you go down to model select, and wow, look, there's our acro, the one we just created. So I can select that by clicking. Now, model type is already set. It's an acro, we're gonna leave it that way. Dang it. Go back to system setup, disconnect RF. Okay, model type, now we're gonna go to model name. So 197 colon space, and this is where we start typing the P-51 V2 Racing 1.1, something like that. We'll be right back. All right, so we ended up with the FMS P-51 Miss America, and yes, I know it's not MS, it's MISS, but I can't fit enough characters, so that's what we got. Okay, aircraft type, this is where you set up the wing. So it's gonna be one aileron, one flap, and a normal tail type. Then we're gonna go to select image. We're gonna go boom, boom, boom. I think we have a P-51 in here. Yeah, there's a P-51. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, and then we have flight mode set up. We are setting up flight mode today because we're using AS3X and safe. And so in order to do that, I'm gonna set up a switch. I'm gonna set it to D because we do have retracts on this plane. Then I'm gonna do spoken flight mode. This is where we can type in what we want it to say on the display here. And it's gonna be like right about here, but that's where we type it and then we can make it say whatever we want. So in this case, I just set it to like AS3X off and then safe, okay? So AS3X off and safe. So I'm gonna scroll in the audio event first, which means we need to go way down here, we'll pause. Okay, so after safe comes AS3X mode. And then I can type it in. So I'll highlight the first character, cancel, cancel, clears everything. And then I can type in the word or the acronym AS3X, which stands for Artificial Stabilization 3 Axis with an X. Yes, that's right. That person got fired, so it's okay. No.
AS3X mode.
Okay, so there you go. Then it's going to be off and so on and so forth. So we'll just type this in. It's just 3 letters. So let's stay alive. OFF. Now I am using a legacy keyboard, full disclosure. I don't like the other keyboards. That's what I use. Okay, I'm gonna scroll to off and we'll come back. Okay, so we can go off.
AS3X mode off. Flight mode 3.
So we don't want flight mode 3, so we're gonna do safe now. Okay, so we're almost there. Here's safe mode.
Safe mode.
Okay, now I'll type in the letters. I'll talk about the safe, which is sensor assisted. I used to say aided a long time ago. Flight envelope. Safe. That's auto leveling. Why don't they just call it auto leveling? Probably because somebody else called it that first.
Safe mode off. AS3X mode.
Stabilization, off, auto leveling. Some people like to use the generic terminology gyro. Gyro is synonymous with stabilizer in my brain. Okay?
Well,
Auto leveling is different than stabilization. Stabilization, resist environmental impact. Suppose I'm ailerons only. I've just got roll axis. It's the only thing that I'm controlling. And I'm mounted to it. I'm mounted to a stick that's like 3 miles long and I'm just flying along and the wind blows and it moves my ailerons up. What's gonna happen? The ailerons are gonna wanna respond like this and this to resist that wind. So then the plane continues to fly straight, okay? Now add in 3 axis. Now you've got a rudder. Okay, I'm going like this and the wind blows my nose that way. I want my rudder to kick this way to keep me on track. When the wind blows that way, then it's gonna go that way to get me back on track. Now add in the 3rd axis, which would be elevator, okay? So we don't do anything with flaps, we don't do anything with gear, we don't do anything with the other surfaces, just the primary control surfaces, okay? So the elevator, nose gets pushed down, elevator goes up, puts me level. Nose gets pushed up, elevator goes down, till we're level. Till we're level is the only difference between the expression of AS3X and safe. Safe is going to find a level, whereas AS3X is going to resist impact. Okay, does that make sense? Auto leveling means this is home, I'm going there regardless of impact from wind, then the wind is resisted by AS3X. So AS3X is at the heart of safe, because without AS3X, safe would not be possible. Because you can always try to drive to a home position, but the stabilizer helps to keep the plane from coming out of home position, right? So I generally fly with stabilizer or AS3X turned on. Some people don't like the way the stabilizer makes the plane feel, which is weird and it's something you'll understand after you fly for a while, but stabilizers are not necessary for flight. They just make it a little easier and sometimes it makes the plane look a little bit more real or full scale. They also make the plane fly like it's bigger. Okay, these are things that people say. I don't necessarily always agree with them, but it is generally true in this case. Auto leveling, on the other hand, is going to help when you're flying and you let go of the sticks and the first time you're flying and you realize, holy crap, this thing just goes when you let go of the sticks. When you're a brand new pilot, you assume when you let go, it's gonna go level. That's not what happens. It goes wherever the heck it wants to go. even with stabilization. Stabilization will minimize the impact of environment on your plane. It will not completely remove it. So if you're flying straight, or if you're flying uphill, or you're flying downhill, or you're flying to the left, or you're engaged in a turn, or you're engaged in a barrel roll, whatever your trajectory is, the environment is going to impact your plane in different ways. The plane is only concerned with one thing. Well, three. This, and that. That's all that cares about. It's going to stabilize those three axes. This is where I was headed. This is always where I was headed, regardless of my actual heading. It's always that way. This is always level, okay? This is always level. This is always level, regardless of my actual heading. I'm just going to resist change that wasn't demanded from that stick, right? And I'm just going to resist change that wasn't impacted from that stick, but was impacted nonetheless. That's why you'll see it wiggle when you move it, and we'll show you that later. I'm just going to resist change in the yaw axis unless it was from that stick, meaning I know where I am. I know where I'm supposed to be going based on that stick or this stick, and yet I'm still moving that way. Why? Impact change, or whatever the rudder needs to do, right? It's just doing that on three axis all the time. That's what artificial stabilization three axis means. All right, let's continue. Safe is just on top of that. It means auto leveling. You can also have angle demand and limited bank angles as well, which is built into safe generically speaking, okay? All right, so we have those three settings. Now, this is just a label that's going to be displayed both verbally through the speakers, wherever the speakers are, and then also on the screen here during normal flight mode. It does not actually change the settings. We'll show you how to make the setting true for where this switch is set to agree with AS3X, off, and safe, okay? All right, now getting back to channel assign, I don't want B, right here, to be attached to aux2 because we're gonna use that for something else. So I'm gonna eliminate that by inhibiting that, okay? And then I am going to leave gear on A, that's where I want it. And then eventually the right knob will be our master gain and it's gonna be okay on channel 8. And you're like, but Brian, you have an 8th channel plugged in. True, so I'm gonna actually move that here to the right knob. So I'm gonna clear that, inhibit that, and then I'm gonna move it here to the right knob.
You won't have anything plugged in on 8. Because you can plug in thrust reverse on 7.
Oh, you're right.
If you want to keep it on 8 like you normally do.
Well, okay. Thank you for clarifying that, camera crew. We are gonna have thrust reverse. Thrust reverse on 7 would be a standard channel for us. So on channel 3, I'm gonna leave this right knob just to keep it as close to standard. My apologies there. That would be the left and right sliders, which we have yet to use on any planes, okay?
Correct.
So aux2 would be channel 7. We'll go ahead and assign that to switch G. That's what I like to use for thrust reverse. We'll come back and talk about that a little bit more later. And then flaps are already going to pre-populate auxiliary 1, which we will later in the flap menu assign to the B switch. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then all these NAs mean that you don't get a vote.
Correct.
All right, so then trim setup we don't care about. I think we should be good now. So we can get ready to bind. But before we do that, we have to wire it up. Okay? Servo setup shows you, but you can also just scroll over one direction to the right. Okay, so that's your normal flight mode, AS3X.
Off. Safe mode. Off. AS3X mode.
Okay. Now you can see throttle, aileron, elevator, rudder, gear, flap, aux2, aux3, aux4, aux2 is now driven by the G switch. Okay, that'll be for thrust reverse. And then we need to set up two functions right away. Well, let's do rates and expo. So I'm gonna set that to switch F. I'm gonna set it my standard way. You guys don't have to do it this way. This is a highly subjective matter But I'm gonna just tell you, if you don't know what you're doing, set it my way and change it if you need to later. One switch commands both rates and expo. This is exactly the same for all 3 of my control axes until we find out there's a problem. Okay, the reason we do that is because I have not had a lot of problems doing it this way, and I don't like having models set up differently for no apparent reason. If I find a system that works, I try to apply that system as a starting point, a basis for consideration. That doesn't mean that you guys can't do it differently, but it does mean that if you want my help, it would behoove you to follow my advice in this regard, even though it is somewhat subjective. I hope that makes sense. If you guys are brand new coming back to the hobby and you think I go too quick, please keep in mind you can click the gear at any point and you can slow down our actions. You can play as slow as a quarter speed.
If you need this video to last for 5 hours,
it would be really
go.
long. But what's going to happen is people will watch this spot.
Yeah, watch it.
Okay. So throttle cut, one of the most critical steps, H. If you ask me, that ought to be default on. Okay. Move the stick. Throttle doesn't move. Throttle doesn't move. Now that it's off, throttle does move. Throttle does move. I want that back on. I don't do a delay. I don't require low stick. If it's a helicopter, I use throttle hold as opposed to throttle cut. That is in the flight mode menu, and I did mess that up when we did a helicopter the other day, and we used throttle cut instead, but it works almost the same. There's just a couple of small idiosyncrasy differences. All right, flap system, we're gonna set it to switch B. And if you guys don't understand what I'm doing, I'm highlighting the choice and then I exercise the switch and it automatically populates, or you can scroll to what you want. Now you'll note I'm not setting anything here, but I am gonna set the speed to 2 seconds. Here's 2 seconds, and I'm not gonna do any elevator compensation yet, but this is probably gonna be 6, and this is probably gonna be 10. This is probably gonna be minus 100. This is probably gonna be plus 100 or some such thing to start, but I want them neutral at the beginning so I don't overdrive and damage my flaps. So I want it neutral until we get it all hooked up. All right, walking out, that should be enough to get us started, but I am gonna go ahead and set a timer for 5 minutes. Let's set it to 4 because we're gonna be hard on this one. 1 out, active, true. 1 minute, I want a voice. 30 seconds, nothing. 20 seconds, nothing. 10 seconds, I want a voice. And then I want a tone and vibrate for expiration, as well as a tone every minute thereafter. Okay. Keep in mind, we'll have telemetry for pack voltage, which will auto-populate to a certain extent as we bind. Okay. So our next move is going to be binding, but I got to get wires hooked up. So we got to be in this screen so we can see where to land the wires on the receiver. Okay. So obviously the first channel, let's see if you can go over here and turn that light on. So the first channel is obviously throttle. If you're using a smart ESC, this is different. So just be aware, you're gonna have to follow the manual's directions. To use some of that, the features, you have to plug it into a different port. Okay, so now there's 2 wires here. What do we do with this one? This one goes to channel 7. Okay, so we'll actually start with that one. It goes over here, and that's gonna be way up here. Then this one, the black goes down, and you're like, but how do you know that? From experience and practice. But black is negative, plus is red, plus is red, plus is red, plus is red. This is a Futaba color code, and this is a Hextronics color code, okay? This is a signal wire, because it's signal, and we are in parallel for the positive and negative. That's what energizes the circuit from the BEC, the battery eliminator circuit, which is half of the equation, or well, one part of the equation from our actual electronic speed control. That's what powers this and the servos and all the features that are contained in here, including the radio, okay, the transmitter, the transceiver in this case. This is actually a transmitter and a receiver. That's why I call it a transceiver, but it is a receiver. Okay, gear. That's gonna be on channel 5. We know that from looking at the screen. Hopefully there's not a huge glare. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Is that a huge glare, huh?
No, that was okay.
All right, so then this wire eventually is gonna get tucked in there, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave this out. I want the brown down. Channel 5. Of course, I plugged in that stupid yellow wire first. It's gonna be in the way the whole time, I bet, but it'll help me hopefully not have a giant tangle when I'm done. Okay, so this is the unmarked one, so that's ailerons. So ailerons, I'm just trying to figure out where it's gonna go best underneath all these wires. I'm assuming I want brown down, obviously, and that's gonna be on channel number 2. So right next to throttle. So there's channel number 2. How do you know? Because it says right there, channel number 2. So the next one would be elevator on channel number 3. So elevator is the short one. I'm gonna do that last. Rudder is channel 4. That's also short. I'm gonna do that next to last. And this is flaps. Why am I doing it next to last? Because it's just hard to reach.
Yeah.
Okay, so flaps, I'm just pulling the label back just a hair. This one, flap, is gonna go on channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 is labeled right here. Now, if you guys are still confused about this and you're thinking this is a great beginner plane to come back to the, to the hobby with, you might rethink your thinking, because this is in a pretty high performance plane, just to be clear. It's like, but Brian, it's a P-51. I've flown a million P-51s. Just wait till you see it fly. You've probably already seen it fly if you're watching this video right now. Okay, so now the rudder goes on channel 2 or channel 4. The elevator goes on channel 3. So let's do rudder on channel 4 first. Let's go under. I want the brown is down. I might use my forceps for these last 2 plugs because it's just getting to the point where I can't reach very well. The bent tip forceps are what I usually go to. Okay, so I don't want to drop anything down. So I like to get way back here, but don't go on the wires. Okay, so let's see if I can go under. This is channel 4. Okay, I've got the brown is down already. And once I'm done, I can just slip out of the, son of a biscuit lever. Popped off. Okay, so I got that plugged in, folks. See, channel 4. So now channel 3's opened. Should make it easy enough to guide this wire in. And I apologize, you won't be able to pretty much see much of this step because I have to try to have my hands in there. And so the camera crew is going to do her best to give you guys a shot of this. Brown needs to be down, so I've got to flip this over. And I apologize, as expected, I'm going to have my hands blocking 90% of the view on this step. And by the way, if you guys are arthritis sufferers and you want to have a better time, I suggest highly getting some forceps. It will really help you in this process. You also notice I haven't stuck down the receiver. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, just depends on the plane. Okay, so this is going to eventually be mounted here. And as you can see, those antennae come out right over the top of that plastic. Okay, so I can slide this back just a hair and give me a little gap. Can you move that camera over, please? See how there's a gap now? I want to maintain that gap. That gap is going to give me a place to get those antennas down and into this opening. I don't really care specifically that they end up at 90 degrees of each other, but that's what we are goaling. That's what our goal is. Now, you can use double-sided tape on this step. You can use Velcro if you really want to, but I would maybe recommend against Velcro. The Velcro will work, but it's probably not the top choice. The only reason I would suggest using Velcro if you're not 100% sure it's gonna stay in that position. And so my suggestion on this would probably be double-sided tape or just get into a little bit of glue and just glue it down. We have actually glued quite a few receivers in and actually had like no problems. But if you need a little bit of vibration isolation, then you can use a little something like this. My suggestion though is if you're gonna use a piece like this and you've got a big receiver, use a couple of them because you do want to make it so it's stuck. This plane is going to be spatially aware via the receiver. It needs to know, the receiver needs to know where it is, okay, in time and space. And if you mount this, oh yeah, that'll be fine.
Would it be easier to put those antenna under?
That's what I'm gonna do.
First?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
But I gotta start somewhere, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna stick these down on here. Okay, there's one there. Once I stick it to the thing, then I'm gonna peel the backing off, right? And then I can get the second one ready to rock. Now, this is going to help hold down the receiver, okay? And once that receiver is taken care of, like the camera crew suggested, I can guide these in here first, okay? Now I wanna walk right next to the receiver, or right next to the wires that we guided out of this opening. And my goal is to get them in. You're not showing them what's going on, are you?
Yeah, I can see. I can see.
You can see the tip going?
Yep, I could.
Okay.
Turn the light on again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with the light on, maybe we'll actually be able to see. You guys see what I'm doing? Now, some of you might say, put that one forward. You know, yeah, you could. It's probably not that big a deal. I've done diversity antennas in these planes for years. We've never even had, like, I think I've had maybe 2 potential signal issues. The whole time we've been doing this, it's never been with Spectrum stuff. It's been with other brands. And I'm not even trying to beat up other brands. I'm not saying it was their fault, because I don't know that it was. But I can tell you right now, well, the one was the Rare Bear, and I really liked that plane. And I lost signal totally, and that plane was going probably like 90 at the time. Just glad it wasn't going toward my face. Okay, so now I'm not biting this wire very hard, folks. I'm just barely pulling on it. You guys see what I'm doing? Just guiding it through. Just guiding it through. Nothing special. Not trying to make this harder than it has to be, but I don't want to kink the cables. If you kink your antennas, you're going to ruin your antennas, okay? They are a coax media, which means that they have like an isolation, like an insulator around. Gosh, they're just being a pain though. Why are you being such a pain, cable? Oh, there it goes. Now it finally dropped. Why is it not just dropping down there? That is so annoying. Okay, it's in there now. So now I can press this onto the wood substrate. And my goal is to press pretty hard here. So I'm just trying to spread out. You know, I don't want to damage the foam. Okay. So there we are. So that's in place. And you're probably thinking, you know, that wiring does not look very good right now. You're right, because it's not tucked in yet, okay? But it's gonna be in like 10 more seconds, which is gonna be pretty amazing. And by the way, I think if I can just get this one gray wire from a different angle, I can probably pull that carefully through. And then I'm gonna grab the other gray wire. And I can pull that one through, except I didn't even grab the gray wire. Nope. And then I can grab the other gray wire and pull it through. What the heck is going on? There we go. There we go. Perfect. Now it's down there where I want it. So those antenna, give them a shot so they can see where they're heading. Okay, pretty simple stuff. All right, so now the next stage is we need to do a little teeny bit of cable management. Should be pretty easy. What we need to do is just get this stuff underneath the wing. And so I'm gonna start with kind of the shorter cables that are sort of favoring toward the bottom. And we just need to be super careful when we get ready to start this process of binding, because you see where my left arm is, my left elbow is right over where the prop is. So that's what I meant earlier about just use your best judgment. You have to be very plain with yourself. Don't pretend to be an expert when you're not. If you're brand new to the hobby, or if you're just returning to the hobby, don't get cut to prove a point to nobody.
Right.
Nobody cares. They just don't want you to get hurt.
Even, I mean, like our son was working on a plane the other day, and he took the prop off because
look at this.
He's more comfortable with the prop off because he just hasn't done it as much.
See that double-sided tape?
Yeah.
Worked amazing.
That was great.
Well, it's probably just because that wood sometimes, well, sometimes there's different chemicals that are on that wood, and it is not sticking worth it. Frick. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. Because it's not sticking well, I'm gonna go back to plan B, and plan B has to do with China. China, you're always cheating. China glue. We're gonna China glue it. Here we go. So we have this thing that we kept from earlier. Okay, watch this, guys. This is gonna be amazing. It's gonna be one of the best experiences you've ever had in your life. Get ready to live. I'm gonna try not to undo all my wiring, and I'm just gonna goop it. Oh yeah, there it is, right there. Just a big slather of goop. Okay, amazing. Got it all over the threads. You see how I did that? I just wrapped the threads perfectly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, I'm just gonna work, oh geez, it's so sticky now. Okay, just gonna grab that and just glue that lid right back on.
Perfect.
Sure won't be hard to open. Okay, now I'm gonna take this and spread and slather that. You're probably thinking to yourself, Self, you didn't get that very good, did you? Nope, but this is a Q-tip after all. Most people would have thrown it away, rightfully so. They would have thrown it away. I kept it. And look at all that money we saved, camera crew.
Great.
I literally saved, what is it, like $3 or $4 for like 10,000? So I saved like literally hundreds of a cent. Amazing. So proud of myself. Okay, so now I'm gonna just take and work that glue up into a tizzy. And I'm just gonna take a little bit off of the side there. And we do need to let that cook off for just a second so it gets tacked up. Once it's tacked up, that double-sided 3M tape, it's gonna be perfect. Perfect. So in the meantime, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put away some tools. We're gonna pause and come right back. All right, so we just cleaned up tools and then we just let that sit. So now hopefully I got enough of that in the right spot that this will just stay there, okay? And if it doesn't stay there, then it behooves me as the responsible party for this aircraft to go ahead and figure out why it didn't stay and then make it stay, which is probably gonna look a lot like this. It's gonna look a lot like, hey, put some more glue in there, try again until it stays. Once it stays, it should be no problem. Now, if you don't like the way this looks, you can actually pull this out at any time, because I'm kind of annoyed by the way that looks. I wanna twist it a few more times because it's just like driving me nuts. I want it to look nice, okay? Once it looks nice, I just have to make sure that I get this plugged in the correct direction, and that's the correct direction. Yes, you could have plugged that in at the end from the start. It doesn't really matter which when you plug it in, but I do want that to traverse along the side so that when you pull your battery out, all this stuff is kind of tucked where it needs to be, right? Now I accidentally hit the bind button, doesn't matter, there's no battery plugged in. And as you can see, we have a pretty clean install. Everything is in there. Looks like a factory sort of install if you just don't look too close.
Right.
Right? Okay. So I'm gonna pull a little bit of slack through here. So we're doing good on that. I'm happy with the way it turned out. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. Now, we obviously have an elevator linkage that we need to install. So I have some ball link pliers here, and we'll be using those in a minute. We also have our little adapter that we talked about earlier, which is here. So this is gonna allow us to plug in the battery that we expect to use. And you do need to keep that in mind when you're considering your battery for this plane. In our case, the battery that we're using is gonna be a 2700 4S, but this happens to be a Gen 1, which is nice because then we can use the voltage alarm. We don't need that because we have telemetry, okay? So also if you use the Gen 2, you won't have that lead. Now, obviously this is gonna work. So I'm gonna plug this in just like this. Okay, now that's plugged in. I'm gonna slide this in. I'm just gonna go in where I think it needs to go. I don't know, I don't remember. And I'm hitting what it feels like a bulkhead. I hope it's just an edge. Yes, it was. Nope, it's a wire. Why am I hitting a freaking wire? There's a wire that's popping up. One of 3 wires, folks, was popping up. That's what I was hitting, going to the motor. I reestablished where that wire needs to go by pressing it with my finger. And I'm just verifying. Do you see it? I'm hitting something else, possibly?
You're hitting the other motor wire. They're like all popped up. You're gonna have to push those down.
Yeah. Well, you remember when I put away the forceps 30 seconds ago, folks?
Yep.
Those wires are not immovable, and they do need to be moved.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna have to get way up.
Because I'm not. Yeah. Because that battery needs to be in there. Okay. Did it fall down?
They're like in the center. They need to be pushed forward or down.
Okay, so I pushed it down. Hopefully that's
Okay,
enough.
let's see. The battery will probably just push it forward and out of the way now.
Okay. Yeah, if it catches it like a hoop, that's not acceptable.
Right.
Did it?
It was. It doesn't look like it's going to now.
What? What do you
It
mean?
should be fine.
Is it out of the way? I can't tell. You've got a perfect vantage point.
No.
What does no mean?
No, it's not out of the way.
Thank you. Goodness gracious.
They're not staying down though. Like you push them here. Come to look from here. Every time you push them down, they just like pop right back up.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I was asking you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick this underneath. There's a lip over here. Once I get that lip, okay, show the people what I did when I get this.
Yeah.
Because that is freaking annoying. And you're gonna be out at the field, you're not gonna have your forceps handy, and then that's gonna happen, okay?
Oh, that's way better. Yeah.
Oh, that was super annoying. Now, the other thing I'm thinking is like, wait a second. Wait a second. Nope.
No.
Not gonna fit that way.
That bulkhead is a lot further back than it.
It's a lot further back. But you see what I'm up against, guys. Okay? I don't want to be limited on this position because that is like way tighter than I want it to be. But it's like, I have no way of lifting the tip of the battery as I load it.
You're hitting that foam.
What foam?
The foam, like
Yeah?
first bulkhead that's probably like right there. You've got to be hitting that already.
You're serious.
Oh man.
What?
That's okay, but that seems really tight.
2,700 instead of 2,600.
I don't think the canopy's gonna go on. Oh. It probably will.
So I pushed that in and I heard a noise that sounded like something ripping. There it goes. There, I'm like up on top of the shelf. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? Do you remember what I was talking about? The battery, if it's hard to load a battery, you won't fly plane as much. Can you shut that light off, please? If it's hard to load a battery, you're gonna be inclined not to fly a plane. So I'm just gonna tell you this. We review planes on this channel, on Brian Phillips RC, and we try to give you the no BS. We try not to sugarcoat it to the extent that, you know, I mean, we try to be fair to the manufacturers, but this is an issue. Like, it's hard to load this battery. I don't like this process. It's a pain. And they should have done better. I remember having problems also with the Voodoo.
With the Voodoo?
Yep, in this regard. I remember having to use forceps to do it with this plane. And I don't want to have to use forceps to load a battery. Okay, folks? I hope that's a reasonable position to take because it's the position I'm taking. But good lordy lord. Like, why is there not a battery tray in this thing? We have battery trays. We had the battery tray in that non-3D, the F3A plane.
Yeah.
Was it F3A?
Yes.
Okay.
We did have that battery tray in it.
Okay, so look, terrible, right? The reason I did that weird pattern is because I needed to be able to pull them tight, and these are really long straps. Okay, so you see I just fold them and double back on each other. Okay, so now we have it. Let's talk about safety for a second, real quick. First of all, are the retracts gonna open if it were to open, which I don't believe they will? The answer is yes.
And you are clear of the plane.
They're gonna clear. So we're safe to open, or we're safe to do it if the gear would happen to actuate, which they shouldn't, and they don't typically. We also know that our throttle cuts on by verifying that the throttle is low and that it's on, because this keeps it there, okay? So we know that's true. That doesn't necessarily mean this won't start, but if it starts, now the third measure of safety is if it were to start, is it gonna pull itself off of the stand and go into a dangerous condition, like into my TV or my arm or my face or kids or wife or whatever. So you obviously wanna make sure that's not a problem. Also, you don't want things like this sitting around it so that if you have a problem, the wind would suck it in. Also, we have reverse thrust on this ESC, so if it goes backward, I wanna make sure we're under control at that point. Secondly, I wanna make sure my hand is out of prop clearances to get to throttle cut or something like that. Thirdly, or fourthly, or fifth, or whatever I'm on, I wanna be able to hold the plane, okay? Once we trust a plane, we don't have to do any of this crap again, okay? You can hold the tip of a spinner if you wanna risk it. I don't like telling people that, but the truth is I've had to do that before with like really slow rotation. The other thing is, can I do it from here? Probably, except I can't reach the controller. Worst case scenario, let the battery die, learn the lesson. That'll be a long 10 minutes. Okay, I don't suggest that, by the way. All right, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna get ready to bind. Now that we have everything wired, we can get out of this monitor mode. Then we can click and scroll down to bind. Be ready, okay? So now I'm gonna have my arm above. See how my elbow and arm is above? Then I'm gonna plug this in. You ready? Mm-hmm. So far I trust it because it's not spinning. Okay, that's good. Secondly, I trust it because it hasn't started. Okay. Just gonna drop that down. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is get the plane somewhat level, and I'm gonna press this button. It's gonna start flashing. Now, I'm gonna click. I'm gonna go down to bind, and then I'm gonna scroll over to yes, and I'm gonna hit bind. This is not where it learns its home position, but I assume the worst case scenario, and in most cases, I don't get cut. All right, so things are working, things are moving, everybody's happy, the throttle has not started. I'm gonna hold the plane now, I'm gonna shut off throttle cut. It did not start at 0, that's good. Now I'm gonna give it some throttle. First of all, it's blowing backward now. Throttle cut's on. That's okay because we have our G switch attached to it with thrust reverse, okay? Listen, nothing. Throttle cuts off. I'm gonna go ahead, I just pulled the G switch toward me, and it's definitely blowing this way now, okay? Switching, and it switches. There's no beep on this one though.
There isn't.
Throttle's low, and I'm gonna put throttle cut on. I now trust the throttle cut because I'm gonna test it. I trust it, it's working.
We're below 15.
Okay, so elevator is not hooked up, ailerons are hooked up, rudder's hooked up. Let's get things reversed quickly. Click, servo setup, can you come back here please? Elevator is not hooked up, we don't care. Rudder is wrong, I'm gonna go to travel. I'm gonna click and scroll over to reverse on rudder. Yaw left, yaw right. Roll left, incorrect. Go to ailerons, reverse. Roll left, roll right. Elevator up, elevator down, we have no clue yet. Flaps are not actuating yet because we don't have them set, but we are gonna do elevator next. Why do we want to be in the off condition? There's no AS3X setup. I'm just gonna do it out of a pretense move, okay? There is no AS3X or safe active yet. We haven't activated it in the menus. We'll show you how to do that, but we wanna make sure we're not auto leveling when we flip this plane over in order to do the next step. The timer is running out right now and we don't care yet. Real quick, we're gonna put the canopy on just to show you that all the wires are gonna take up a lot of room. Okay, a lot of room is not what we wanna take up because you don't want that canopy to come off when you're going like 100 miles an hour. It's not a very fun thing to have happen. I've had it happen, okay? All right, the plane is upside down. Now we can look at the elevator. The elevator is going to the outside hole to the one that's already populated. We know the lips need to go in when it does go in. So how do we tell where this goes? We get this thing centered. How do you know if it's centered? What you do is you, first of all, you kind of measure where it's gonna be. That's obviously not good because it's pulled way down. So we need to unscrew this a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot of unscrewing. We need to make sure we have good purchase. And then I'm just gonna slide this in. Yeah, that's got a long ways to go. That makes me very nervous. We are like all the way out on that. I wonder if this servo is supposed to be mounted the other way. Because like, look at this, guys. You would only understand what I'm saying if you had a linkage come out on an SU-27. Okay, I just want to talk about how far out this is. That's gone, off. I'm gonna go one turn. I'm gonna put this in and I'm gonna twist it, and we're not level yet. That is not correct. That cannot be correct. This linkage is either too short or that is incorrect. This is an unusual problem. You see that? This is not long enough. So there's two ways to resolve that. One, we can try to flip around the servo and change the control arm position. That's what we're gonna have to do. And that's just the way it is. Now, fortunately, we don't have anything set up, so we don't have a lot of trouble doing it, but it's frustrating that we would have to make such a large, drastic mechanical change to adapt to a short linkage, okay? So we are probably going to run out of battery, right, hon?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just get this figured out, hopefully. So I'm gonna go to a smaller screwdriver. I hope we have enough lead to get this done. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go downstairs and dig through our spare parts. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want you guys to understand that it's possible maybe ours is backward. Is there a drawing?
Do you want me to look while you're...
Yeah, well, just stay here for now.
Okay.
Because I have like already got the screw out. Okay, so this is not something that you should have to do, but we're doing it anyway because we are all about getting planes in the air. And that cable is
Because that's, your elevator was the super duper
Short one. It ain't gonna go. Okay, so if that's the case, the alternative measure is to change the position that that moves from. And I don't like that at all.
Why not?
Because you're not even on the amount of throw.
Oh.
You want to be 90 degrees so that the up and down movement is the same. This seems like a really big gaffe. We have not seen a lot of gaffes like this from FMS over the years. We've seen a few, but the one that happened on our SU-27 was like hidden, like nobody knew it was going to be like that. It actually pulled the threads off of the rod. And I kept that rod, by the way, for anybody who questions that. You remember when John made a big stink of it? He later apologized for that, by the way, guys. Okay, so if I pull this off, this is what you can technically do, but this does not seem right to me, is you can take this out. Can you go over here on the other side, please? I just dropped a screw. We're gonna pause. Okay, so we found it. It's laying right there now. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to take this off and move it in closer to where the elevator needs to be. Now, the compromise is pretty big, okay? Because now I don't even know if this is going the right way yet or not. See that? Yeah, we should be fine. It'll be okay. It's not ideal, but it's better than not getting a plane up in the air. Okay, so we're gonna screw this in a few turns, make sure we got a little bit of purchase on it. And there we go. Now we'll be okay. So because of that, now that I know I'm in there a few turns, I can go a few more for good measure. Oh yeah, we're into fresh plastic. That's good. So I can take this off. I can go back just a hair, meaning I move back another spline position, and then look at that, guys. Now we've got that pretty dang level, and that is acceptable. I can tolerate that. It's not gonna be a huge disparity, okay? Now, you don't need to have a tool like this. You can probably snap that on without too much effort. And so I'm gonna just use this to snap it on to show you how that works. But just keep in mind, as you snap it on, make sure everything is squared away. And then this thing will snap on like that. Now you can do that without a tool, it's just really hard on your thumbs. Okay, now I'm gonna take this screw. This machine screw is gonna go back into the metal gear output on this, and then that will purchase the spline into the control horn, or control arm in this case. I'm gonna go up one screw size because I didn't feel like I got a good enough bite. Oh yeah, it's a lot better now. Okay, so guys, let's talk about this for a second. That should not happen. That is not kosher, electrically or electronically speaking. I'm disappointed by that maneuver. We don't oftentimes badmouth these companies that we work with because we want you to buy these amazing planes, but we want you to buy the planes for the right reasons. That's not a reason not to buy the plane, but it is a reason to be annoyed because you shouldn't have to do that. Okay, whatever, I'm over it. On to the next problem. Flaps. And let's look at the elevator, see if it's going the right direction. And at this point, I'll just switch the direction the plane is sitting because we'll usually film from this direction. And we like to be able to see the controls so we can do this easily. You can stay right where you are. Okay, so from the back of the plane, elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right. Yaw left, yaw right, and the steerable is doing the same, which is what we expect. Now let's do takeoff flaps, landing flaps, flaps. That's the wrong way because this would normally be my normal flight mode. Okay, I'm gonna put this to AS3X even though there's nothing actually happening yet. And I'm gonna go from 0 back to negative. I'm gonna go to negative 100, and it's probably not gonna go all the way to the home position, but it's close, okay? So we'll show you how to get the rest. Wow, that's crazy. Like, what the heck? Did I lose? I can't even go to all the way down? I can't even go to 0? Okay, so let's talk about flaps for a quick second. First of all, deploy the flaps. They're deployed, right? Landing flaps. Oh, I just didn't have anything set yet.
Right.
Sorry, folks, overreaction. Brian Phillips, RC, is good at that. Okay, so 0. I'm gonna set like way lower, like -30. And I'm probably gonna do more, but the first thing I wanna do is go into servo setup travel. And I'm gonna go to flaps with my flaps in neutral. I'm gonna click on that. I'm gonna run this up like 120, and no, I don't even need that much, like about 110. That gets us flush there, close. Let's do 115. Yeah, 115 gets us really close to level. So 115, we're not gonna mess with the bottom side because we don't need to increase anything here. Okay, so we'll do takeoff flaps and then landing flaps. Okay, so takeoff flaps, I wanna do a little bit less. So you see how it's minus. Let's do minus 60. Oh yeah, see, just a little bit for takeoff flaps. Then we go to landing flaps for barn doors. And remember, we're gonna have thrust reverse now. So let's talk about that next. We wanna get all the direction of the control axis in the right direction so that everything works. Now let's show you the landing gear while I've got it in my hand. Okay, retracts down, retracts up. Okay, so I wanna reverse the operation of the retracts as well, so I'll just lay this down that direction right now. Walk out of the flat menu, go to servo setup, click travel, reverse gear. Okay, very good. So that means the gear are retracted. Then the gear are extended. Okay, so I can walk back out. So throttle cuts on, expose set. We'll get the, next thing we need to do is let's look at the flaps. The flaps are not fully retracted yet. We need to go more. You guys see this? I'm gonna show you something. See this? That actually looks good, but there is a gap. I wonder if that's a problem. You know what? Maybe it's not a problem. Yeah, I'm gonna go to minus 125 and see what it looks like. So travel on flaps. I'm gonna go from 115 to 125. Oh yeah, that closed them up nicely, but then they're up too high.
This one is off a little bit.
It's off a little bit because they're both.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to 115. There's 125. 125 is usually about right for home position, but it's just too high. I'm gonna go to 115. It is 115 then, on ours. Now 115 is fine. I'm not saying that it's gotta be, I just don't like this gap. That's a little bit unusual. Okay, whatever, we'll take it. Elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. They can't see much from there. So what I'm gonna do now is I am going to start into the process of thrust reverse before we do AS3X and safe, because I think we can fit that before the battery dies. Okay, so thrust reverse is pretty easy. It's a digital switch setup thing. So I wanna select switch G. So we can just look at what condition it's in. Throttle cut's currently on. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, holding the plane. I'm gonna give throttle. See, it's blowing the box. Okay, that's thrust reverse. So we want that to be forward. So I'm gonna hit select. Whoops. I wanna go to G. I don't know why it unselected it. So that one is that's where it is currently. So we could rotate the direction, but that's not good enough, and I'll show you why. I wanna go to minus 100 here. My scrolly wheel is starting to get a little bit gummed up, guys. I'm not sure how to solve that. Probably alcohol. Yeah, I know. Okay, so we're at minus 100. This one's gonna be plus 100. And then the position 2 is gonna be plus 100. Now, why do we care? Because I wanna be in complete command and control. I do not want a middle floating position. That's a dangerous position. Go up a little higher, please. Tip forward. Thank you. Okay, so now we're at, whoops, 100. That should be forward thrust for us. Okay, so forward thrust, throttle cuts off. Yep, forward thrust, reverse thrust, and also reverse thrust, forward thrust, throttle's off, and throttle cuts on. Okay, guys, that being said, we're about to lose our battery, so we're gonna pause and come right back as soon as our battery's good. All right, so we're gonna finish the radio setup. Obviously, we have to do forward programming so we can get AS3X and safe actually activated. Previously, we set up the labels, but it's not doing anything yet, and it won't do anything yet if you stop at this point. That's just a label. Okay, so we've got this on a plane stand, and we've had it on the plane stand for the vast majority of the build, just because it's convenient. But now we kind of need it on the plane stand because since this is a tricycle, we need to set the spatial orientation correctly. And so you want it to be like it's gonna fly, not like it's gonna taxi, okay? So you don't want it to sit like this. You want it to sit level, okay? So note that you can change the attitude of the airplane a little bit. And then also on the plane stand, it's really handy to do this. Now, if you don't have a plane stand, all you have to do is take some books or whatever, a battery or something like that, and get it underneath the tail wheel. But I'm just gonna show you how drastic of an impact this can be without, okay? You don't want the plane to fly like that. It's not gonna fly right, it'll fly uphill. So if you were to train it, this is level, that's where it's gonna go level, which means it's gonna fly uphill, okay? So you need to try to get this thing level. And then also note the prop clearance. Not very much, okay? So just keep that all in mind as you're making your considerations. Here's an idea. If you have a pillow close by and you don't have a plane stand, you can just adjust this until you get it about level, okay? So there's more than one way to skin a cat, but for our sake, we're gonna go ahead and use the Robart plane stand. Of course, we link to stuff like this in our supplies. So if you're looking for something like that, you should be able to find it, right?
Mm-hmm. And they are back in stock. They were out of stock.
They were out of stock
for
forever. Mm-hmm. We don't know why, but they were. This one in particular is, by the way, nice because you can slide it in and out, but it's extremely hard to slide in and out when it's brand new. So take some baby powder and put it on here and here, and it'll make it a lot easier. Now, you don't want to just have it level front to back. You want to have it level left to right, okay? So you can see, you want to kind of have it square, okay? So that's kind of pointed a little bit downhill. So I'm just going to work until I get it exactly right to where I feel like it's level. Now remember, this is a little bit subjective. I mean, of course, there's an engineer somewhere that say it's not subjective, but on a model airplane, it's subjective. That's pretty darn straight. Remember, this is gonna be a fast flying plane, so you want to make accommodations for it to go very fast. If you don't, you'll be dissatisfied with its performance, I promise. All right. So now that we have it in position, we're gonna just double check controls one more time. Elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. Now I just wanna point out something. Takeoff flaps, landing flaps, okay? This rudder is not perfectly lined up. It's very close, but it's got a little bit of a kick to that side. I'm not worried about the rudder that much, because I want it to be close to perfect as I can get it without going crazy with it, okay? If I were to waste the time popping off that, I guarantee you it's not gonna take much to straighten this, okay? And the reason I say is because we do have a little bit of trim to be able to center it. And my experience is, on this particular plane, if there's a little bit of trim in it, it might help with P factor, okay? And when I say P factor, that is throttle cuts on. So when you're putting the throttle up, you're gonna have to favor so far over. That's the one problem we have with this particular plane. And what happens is, as an inexperienced pilot, you're gonna wanna give her tons of throttle right away and just jack it into the air. If you can control your throttle, you need very little throttle to get this thing moving. So maybe 10, 15, 20% throttle to get it up on its mains. So you'll push the stick forward, get it up on its mains, and then you'll taxi quickly. Then you can get into the throttle progressively more and more and more until it's basically flying. If you go like really quick, the thing's gonna flip over on itself and it's gonna crash. Okay, so just be aware of that. The stabilization will help. Auto leveling will help if you're really inexperienced, but I wouldn't suggest, if you're super inexperienced, getting a plane like this. It's gonna be very quick, okay? Quick planes don't leave long for your brain to catch up with what's happening in front of you. That's my suggestion. You don't have to obey any of my suggestions, but my suggestion is you do, okay? So we said we charge batteries. I charged the battery on this too while we're between steps here. So to do forward programming, you'll just scroll down to forward programming. Keep in mind, and I'm just gonna reiterate this, you have to have all the surfaces going the right direction. The gear are irrelevant, the flaps are irrelevant as it pertains to forward programming. But you want those things set. It's just a good rule of thumb, get that set, then do forward programming, all right? So forward programming, clicking, gyro settings, first time setup. Make sure the model has been blah, 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 blah. It's telling you what I just told you. Okay, set at level, hit continue. Set the model on its nose and hit continue. Now we just spent all that time leveling it And really this step comes first, but it comes first for a good reason, because we have to make this thing spatially aware. So the camera crew is gonna come over where you can see. We're gonna click continue. Okay, now it just told us the way that it's oriented in the plane. Now, in order to verify that this is correct, you can either open the lid or you can take my word for it, but this says orientation 5. So the easiest way is to lift up the lid and then look at that. Is that the way that the thing is oriented? Yes. Can you put that up higher? Okay. So now we're gonna put the lid back on. This is the direction it's oriented. My suggestion also is that you stay behind the plane while you're setting it up. It just leaves less room for confusion. So we're gonna hit continue, gain channel. We want it to be on this, the right knob. So I'm gonna check right knob, okay? Auxiliary 3. Apply, now it's gonna boot. So did you see what happened with the gear? The gear cycled. I don't like that, but it's what it is. I'm not sure why that is, and we'll see if it happens each time we boot. You'll wanna be aware of it, okay? Receiver is rebooting. Go back into forward programming. Now you can see the gyro settings, AS3X settings, now populates the screen. I like to set this to 4 for setup, and we'll change it back later. Okay, so you can see how it says flight mode 1, flight mode 1, flight mode 1. So we don't have something set right. That's because we have to go into F mode setup, and we have to tell it what channel is going to be commanding that. This is set to D, and it tells you that. There you go. Now it's going to go between those modes. See how it says 3?
Safe mode. AS3X mode.
We did not get it right. aux1 is not commanding switch D, evidently.
Aux1 would be flaps.
That's right. So why does it say D? Because that's evidently some stupid automatic thing. No, that's untrue. aux1 is the flaps, which is switch B. So don't always trust what it says right here. aux1 is flaps. aux2 is not G. aux3, wait, aux2 is G?
7 would be, yeah, we set 7 to G for reverse thrust.
Okay, fine. So I guess what we're gonna do is we have to walk out because I don't know what's going on. So I'm just gonna inhibit this and hit next. So what I wanna do is I wanna walk out and verify what's going on. So I'm gonna step over 1. Switch D's not changing anything, guys. We never made an assignment. So we have flaps on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, aux1, aux2, aux3. See this? Now aux2, nothing. Reverse thrust, aux2 is on reverse thrust. So we don't even have anything assigned. So aux3 is this. Gear is gear. So we need to go up to aux4, okay? So we need to make an assignment. We go down to system setup, disconnect RF. Then we're gonna go down to channel assign. And we're gonna make an assignment up here on an unused channel. Unpluggable channel. Now, right knob happens to be assigned to aux3. We could just make aux4 the right knob, and then that pluggable channel will be useful for something else later. But we'll change that later, I guess. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't really matter because we're not using it for anything anyway. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna make it either switch D or I'm gonna make it flight mode. I'll make it flight mode in this case, okay? So my apologies for missing that earlier, but it's really irrelevant at this point because it's gonna get changed right now. Flight mode setup. See, not changing because we have to actually tell it that flight mode is how we want to control the FM channel. Now, I just want to point out something here. See that? There's aux4, flight mode. Now watch this. 1, 2, 3. 2, 1. Okay, so it's now changing. So in this mode, I want FM mode to turn AS3X on. In this mode, I want that off. In this mode, I also want it on because we're going to have the addition of safe. but I want AS3X off in the off setting. I want AS3X on in this setting and that setting. Make sense? So now we can just scroll up to back, and then we can go system setup, orientation. We've already done all that stuff. Gain channel select, aux3. See that? Very good. Now we can go to first time safe setup. You're going to notice that there was a dance at the reboot. It was one dance. There's going to be two when safe gets turned on. And it's done, right? Okay, so we're going to go FM channel. It's already configured, but you have to re-verify. It says before setting up safe, a flight mode, we already did it. So now we can hit continue. Now it wants you to tell you where it wants it set up. I want it in flight mode 3. Okay, so level and capture the attitude. I don't know why you walk back there. Come back here. Is it level this way? Looks like it's pretty dang close, but I can't say with certainty that it's perfect. Let's say it's good. So we're gonna level model and capture attitude. Click. Now, if there was a correction, it would put it right here. There's not, and here's why, guys. On this model, we have the receiver mounted flat on the tray. The tray is many times going to be level with the model. Not always, but most of the time. If the tray gets glued inaccurately at the facility when they build it, the manufacturing facility, then that's something you can't control. This will correct that. I'm gonna show you one other thing. If you want, you can go in here and cheat in a value, okay? Or you can cheat in a value. If that was a positive number, it says right here on pitch, positive would be nose up. Negative would be nose down. So if you wanted this plane to fly like that, you could do that. You want to know a plane that likes to fly like this? It's sitting right there. Now, I'm not saying that's the way they set that up, but you could set that up. If you have a plane that tends to fly in a high alpha configuration, you can set that up, okay? So remember, this has to do with safe, sensor-aided flight envelope, auto leveling, not AS3X. AS3X is irrelevant to pitch. I mean, it's irrelevant to pitch in this case. So now if you set it like that and you go back over here and you level it and capture, it should set it back to 0, okay? Because we've already established that that is the position. Now what I meant by safe is that level is irrelevant to AS3X. It's not irrelevant in total. It's just irrelevant for this part of the setup, which is the angle demand portion, where it's going to demand that it comes back to a level position. Now keep in mind, safe, I call it auto leveling for easy, but it also limits your bank angles to a certain percentage, okay? So that you don't flip the plane upside down, okay? So that's where we do this here. So we can see it says flight mode 3, flight mode 2, flight mode 1. See how it says inhibit, inhibit, inhibit. I want that on with self, level, and angle demand. Now you can do also envelope. And then there's something else in there and I can't ever get it to display long enough. But this is what we're doing. Self level with angle demand, okay? So we're gonna allow for more pitch down to the tune of 55 and more pitch up to the tune of 55. Now this speaks to degrees. So we're gonna be allowed to roll at approximately 60 degrees. So figure on 2/3 of 90, okay? And we're gonna be able to allow to go the same as true. So your plane can go, this would be 90. You don't wanna go to 90 because you'll overshoot sometimes. And then the plane will freak out and it'll try to return it to whatever it thinks it needs to go to. Sometimes that means it'll flip you, okay? And when it flips you, it gets weird because it takes up a lot of real estate to do that. Okay, so we're gonna demand it about here, here. That's where we're gonna operate within that window. And then for pitch, we're gonna be at 55, just a little bit less and just a little bit less than what we can do for the roll. Okay, now you can demand whatever range you want, but I just want to warn you right now, if you allow for too much pitch down and too much pitch up, you may be setting yourself up for failure, okay? So I roll in a little bit more, but I generally don't fly in safe either, okay? Also, the other thing is when you go to launch a plane, especially a tail dragger, you need to be able to get that demand, you need to be able to get it into orientation properly for takeoff. It will auto level the plane. So you could just throttle up and it will just pull it up into a level configuration if you level it right when you're sampling. All right, so continuing onward. So remember, this is just in flight mode 3. What happens in 2? That. What happens in 1? That. In other words, nothing, nothing, or that. Okay, so I'm gonna go over to next. Now I'm gonna apply. Now watch for the double dance. That's why you gotta be careful, because you see that it actually did give a throttle kiss, okay? The receiver's rebooting. One dance, 2 dances. Okay, so once it's done, we're not even in forward programming now. And I just want to talk about what happened. We have had that happen twice. We had it happen once on, I'm trying to remember what plane it was, but I remember we had a jump on throttle like that. Now that was not a full bore throttle, and it was during a reboot. So that's a very unusual time to see the prop start, okay? But just keep in mind, I don't want to overstate the obvious here, but if you plan for the possibility of something weird happening, that's why I said, look for 1 dance, look for 2 dance. I knew there was going to be a reboot. That's what I was talking about. I wasn't talking about the prop starting because that's only happened a couple of times. But I do want you to be aware that it can happen. I don't like that it happened. It probably shouldn't have happened, but it happened. So guess what? If you'd have been holding it at that point, you probably would have got scuffed up. I don't think it would have gone and just chopped your arm off or something, but it would have probably hurt you because that was not a full bore, right? But if it would have gone full bore, and we've had it happen before where it will go partial bore, it's a little scary. So just be aware of that. There are times where you're more vulnerable than other times, particularly entering and exiting the menu structure, entering and exiting forward programming, and then playing with throttle adjustments, okay? So you wanna be super careful. There's probably a few others, but those are just off the top of my head. All right, so let's talk about where we are now. Elevator up, elevator down. Now we happen to be in safe. I'm gonna go to regular AS3X. Elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right, take off flaps, landing flaps. Whoops, take off flaps, landing flaps. Sorry about that. I grabbed the wrong stick. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically, nope, you're right here still. Then I'm gonna go to off. Up, down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. No difference, and that's the way it should be. Now safe, elevator up, elevator down, yaw left, yaw right, roll left, roll right, take off flaps, landing flaps. Why do we go through the entire process of checking every single control channel? Because it's your responsibility when you set it up. So if there is a technical fault, something goes wrong, guess whose fault it is? Yours. So you have to do the test. If you don't test it, it's still your fault. Even if that really expensive receiver and really expensive transmitter made a mistake, you need to be responsible for your actions when you are flying radio controlled airplanes. Just like with other aviation things, okay? So just take ownership of what you're doing. Don't blame somebody else when you don't check. I have made mistakes. I have crashed because I didn't check. I remember I crashed a plane that my grandpa spent like 4 months building. And it was a Sig Duinger 216, yellow, twin engine. The thing flipped over, hit a curb, boom, like that. Probably another month repairing it, okay? That was because I didn't check and it crashed because of it. All right, so don't be me. Be somebody else. That's better than me. All right, so here's another trick. Down and out, controls move. Out of safe, they move further. AS3X, no change. Off, no change. In safe, there's less, okay? That's because we are limiting our bank angles, and therefore it will limit how much amplitude you have. Now, there will be a position where you are the furthest from where you can go, that it will be full amplitude on that control surface. And then it will taper by a factor of percentage basis of differential. So if you're at this, you're allowed 55 up and 55 down, because that's what we set, 55 up, 55 down. Now if we're on the roll axis, 60 and 60. So we're 55 and 55. Right, so the nose is over here, the tail's over here. If you're here, it's gonna allow you to have the full elevator down, which would be like this, okay? So that it can right the plane to the position you've called out, the absolute maximum position. Somewhere in the middle, it's gonna be about half. That's why you see a difference in the middle, okay? Now, if you guys don't believe me, which people sometimes don't believe me because they think I'm just blowing smoke, that's fine. You can think whatever you want, I'll prove it to you. Look at the change. It's gonna change. I gotta change this way. You see that? It's going down further. Look what's gonna happen. It's gonna taper to 0. You see how it's tapering to 0? Because we're at 55 degrees. See how that works, guys? Now everybody understands, because most people don't understand these things because they don't ask stupid questions and dwell on things like I do. All right, so first things first. Now that we have confirmed that we have safe operating, I'm gonna throttle cut is on. I'm gonna give throttle. It's not working, good, because the throttle cut is on. Throttle cut is now off. I'm gonna give throttle, and it's going forward. I've given throttle. Throttle cut is now on, and I'm gonna test the stick. It is still working, okay? My reverse thrust is on this switch. It should make no impact. I'm gonna verify that so I don't cut my hand off. Verified. All 3 settings have been verified to work with my throttle cut. Also, what else happens? Over 25%, AS3X goes live. Under 25% for the first power cycle, so if you first turn on the unit, you go to fly, AS3X is not gonna be chattering like crazy until you give it 25% throttle or more, then it's gonna kick in. Now, safe is automatically on, but AS3X is not live until you start. So it'll try to auto level, but it won't chatter. I'm gonna turn this gain all the way up because that's the gain channel on the right knob. You should see this thing correct pretty much immediately. Throttle cuts on, verified like 3 times now, okay? So watch, it's gonna go toward the camera crew. Yep, it's gonna come toward me. Yep, elevator up, elevator down, elevator up. Now remember, this is just AS3X. Now watch that, the aileron's gonna go up, and it's gonna go down. I hope you can see it. If you can't see it, I'll give you guys a better view in just a second. This aileron is gonna go up, it's gonna go down. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I'm gonna hold the camera so I can show you. Okay, so just real quick, watching the rudder. As I go this way, it's trying to resist. As I go that way, it's trying to resist. Now elevator, same thing. It's trying to resist, it's trying to resist. It's trying to resist. Now aileron, I'm gonna roll up, I'm gonna roll down, okay? Same thing, up, same thing down. Now, camera crew's gonna take back over. You have to 100% verify that that is correct, not only in the direction of travel from your stick condition, but also from the AS3X and safe. You can check it upside down if it's easier. You can check it right side up. If it's not enough movement, put your hand on the surface and move the plane. It should go the direction you're moving it. No matter what direction the plane is sitting, this goes that way, yep, it's resisting. Goes that way, it's resisting, it's resisting. It's resisting the environmental impact. Environmental impact means the plane got moved, but that stick didn't call for it. Now watch this. Elevator up, it's all the way up. It's not gonna correct. It's not gonna correct down because I'm calling for it to go up and I'm at the maximum output. Now watch this, down and out, so you can see both. Watch this. Nothing or very limited change. On the roll, look at the elevator. Very limited change. What you're hearing is the rudder. So if I very carefully do both, no change. Because I am in charge before AS3X is in charge. Do you see what I did there? The sticks are down and over. What that tells you is that you are the pilot. I have to be careful as I do this because I got my pinky on there, but I have throttle cut on too. What I'm trying to explain to you guys, if you weren't already intimately familiar is that when you are in charge, you are in charge. The AS3X is gonna take over if you're not giving input. And it's by a factor of percentage basis input. We have given it 100% input for all intents and purposes on ailerons, rudder, and elevator. Guess what? There's nothing left for the AS3X to do. It's not gonna attempt to correct any more than that. But when you give it 17% and 20%, it's got 80% of its usefulness still going, okay? So you are pilot number one, AS3X is pilot number two. As you increase your output, it decreases its output. As you decrease your output, it takes control, you see? That's the way it works. All right, so now that we've talked about that, we're gonna check safe. So obviously, I'm gonna show you one thing real quick too. So we got it moving. Obviously you can hear it. Master gain is right here on the right knob. It's making all sorts of racket. 50%, 0%. 50%, 100%, off. Nothing. Safe. Still has the amplitude adjustment, okay? So, now that we're in AS3X, we know that it's an AS3X. That's where I'm gonna fly. That's where I'm gonna take off. That's where I'm gonna do my maiden flight. And then I might throw a little bit of safe on just to show you that it exists in time and space, but it's not necessarily going to make a huge impact on what we're doing, okay? Because it's mostly there to help teach you guys how to set up safe and not so much for me to use it because I don't use safe anymore. But I did learn to fly using safe, okay? So now, what do we need to do? We need to go back into forward programming and we need to turn down the master gains, gyro settings, AS3X. See how it says 4X? I'm gonna turn down to 1. I want this, my aim is to have that about 50%. If there's not enough gain, it will end up all the way up. Then I can change it to 2 and cut it back to about half. If there's way too much gain, you can actually technically go to 0.5, but I don't know, it doesn't always let you keep those lower values, okay? So now as I exit the menu, okay, it didn't reboot. It didn't need to reboot for that change. I'm gonna turn this all the way up and show you how much less quiet it is or how much less movement there is now. You guys hear? And off. So it's like about a quarter of what we were experiencing before or a little bit less. And that's because we went from 4x gains, meaning 4 times right knob amplitude equals gain, right? So now we have it as 1 times at 100%. We had it at 4 times at 100%. Now we can go to about 50 and we'll be ready to take off. Now, what's the big deal with having more amplitude? You could just turn that knob up more, Brian. True, but what's gonna happen is you won't be able to get the resolution you need to get from I'm overcorrecting, it looks like it's trying to make babies in the air, okay, to undercorrecting, meaning I don't have enough correction and it's getting tossed around by the wind. That's why you want to be in the right 1x, 2x, 3x, or it's 1x, 2x, 4x setting, because that's just a magnitude of gain amplitude. Once you get it set, you could hypothetically go in and learn your settings and then never mess with it again. But my suggestion is, if you have access to it, you have enough channels, you're not using anything on that channel, just go ahead and use it. There's no reason not to. Unless, of course, later you decide you want to do like a drag shoot or you want to do like a candy drop or some goofy thing like that, which you could technically do because, as you know, we have one more channel that's not plugged in on this vehicle, okay? You could also set up separate controls. So you could have differential. Differential, of course, is at 100%. The aileron that's going up would go up and the aileron that's not going up would stay still, okay? Like this. At negative 100% differential, the aileron that's going up would stay still and the aileron going down would go down only, okay? And then somewhere in the middle, neutral would be both would move up and down, AKA no differential. Differential is handy on super high performance planes, but it's not really necessary on most models. But with differential, you chew through another channel without adding that much feature, if you ask me. You can use differential in tandem with flaperons too. Flaperons, of course, would be where they go down with the flaps. You can make a full-length flap. You could also make crow, where these go up together, continue to actuate as ailerons, while these inboard flaps are down. Okay, so just a couple of creative ideas. The other thing you can do, but I would not do it on this particular plane because of the deployment style. See this? You can't go up with these flaps. You can only go down. Well, you can go up just like a little teeny tiny bit, but you want to act as a full-length aileron because you can only go up. Now, you can still technically split this channel, but you're gonna have to do some very complicated stuff because well, it's not really all that complicated. You gotta take the wing off. You gotta take that little black box that we glued in with China glue, separate the wires that come out that go to the wing. You'll take your wire that goes up to the servos or to the plugs in the actual receiver, and you'll run one extension cord to each of those cables, and you'll just omit that black box for that particular channel. So you would separate these two out, or you would separate these two, okay? Now, I'm not suggesting you do it, it's totally unnecessary, but some people get into that stuff. If you're one of those people, I don't mean to diminish your experience by talking down about it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, I just don't think it's necessary at all. So you might enjoy that sort of thing, and if you want to, if you separate these channels so that instead of operating as one unit, they operate independently, you could tie them to the aileron behavior with a mix. And then you would basically set it up probably still as flaps, so you get the flap mode behaviors. Or you could do flaperons and then just make these flaperons and make these ailerons, okay? I think you can do that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is this: if you set up a weird wing type, it's a lot more complicated. You just need to be aware of what you're getting into. I would not suggest doing it. You're not going to improve the performance of this plane, in my opinion. So the beauty of this hobby is that my opinion doesn't matter when it's your plane, but my opinion does matter when I'm trying to teach people how to do it. And so that's why we try not to get into super crazy stuff all that often. Occasionally we do crow. We're going to do crow on that thing here soon. Because some people like crow, especially on that SWS, that Timber SWS 2-meter balsa wood airplane. All right, so what's next? We got to set up our CG. It needs to be marked at 70 to 80 millimeters back from the leading edge. So we're going to mark it, and then we're going to check with the battery. Also, earlier on, we talked about potentially using a 3200 4S, even though they call out a 2600 4S. This is a 50C, which would be nice because that meets the minimum requirement of 35C. This is probably too dang big to fit in there, okay? Now, I'm not saying you couldn't squeeze the thing in there, so I'm still gonna keep these things in queue ready to go, but I don't think they would fit. Now, also, I think the CG is going to prove to be an issue even with our 2700. Might be a little bit large, okay? So throttle cuts on, throttle sticks down. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my calipers. I'm gonna zero this. Why do you keep walking away from me? We're gonna go 70 to 80 millimeters, all right? 70.
Are you testing it? Which way?
What do you mean am I testing it? I'm marking it.
Upside down.
There's one dot, okay? There's one dot. Now, what's so special about that dot? The manufacturer suggests 70 to 80, and that's what I'm gonna mark. And there's 80 close enough. So I'm just looking for the middle of this arc, roughly, okay? Now I'm gonna be honest with you. Marking the center of gravity is challenging. Let's show the people this from my perspective. When I'm marking this, you don't wanna necessarily go to this spot for your starting point. You kinda wanna find the middle where it would hit on the fuse if it was a wing that was part of this assembly. So I usually try to hit somewhere in the middle, okay? If this was a straight edge that went in, which they rarely are, it would make it a lot easier. But the drawings are ambiguous, so we just go with what we got. Okay, I like to darken the marks. With a marker, you could use a blue marker, you could use a red marker to make it more pretty since this is red, white, and blue. But the truth is, every single plane I own is marked pretty much the same way, and you won't notice. I guarantee, unless you're looking for it. It's so weird. You think you would see it, and it would just make you want to projectile vomit because it's so dang ugly. But the truth is, like, we never notice them, or I don't.
I don't.
And we got hundreds of planes marked that way. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You can do it a different way if you think it's, you know, helpful, but I would suggest marking it this way because I can feel the bump. Throttle cuts on, throttle sticks down. Landing gear, up or down, probably not a huge difference, but generally speaking, the center of gravity needs to work with the gear up and the gear down so you can get the thing to the ground. On the back hole, we're nose heavy. On the front hole, we're tail heavy, but less. So we're more nose heavy. So if I'm about 3/4 of the way through the range, if you want to just show them where my middle finger is, you can see it's right in the middle. The pad of my finger is obviously about as big as that measurement. So what I try to do is I just find the spot where I think it's gonna be. And this percentage basis, this would be probably nose heavy, this would probably be tail heavy, and then somewhere in the middle. And that's all I do is I just feel those two bumps. I'm on the back mark, that's nose heavy. I'm on the front mark, that's tail heavy, so somewhere in the middle, let's call it 40 to 50% back, we balance out really nicely, okay? I can totally live with that, and plus, if you look at the angle of the landing gear, we're talking about basically coming out mostly straight. There is a little bit of a cant forward, but we're talking about an indistinguishable amount. And I'm just gonna prove it to you by checking the CG again. Again, this is a very quick process. I don't normally have to explain it when I'm checking it, you know? So on the front hole, it's tail heavy. On the back hole, it's slightly nose heavy. And in the middle, 50% roughly, it's good enough. Now, I'm gonna tell you this. On a plane this size, you want the CG pretty close, but I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like you're gonna lose a plane if you're off by a couple of millimeters. I just don't think you will. Also, I'm a little off put by this gap here. I don't like that gap. This is a pretty high performance plane. I have been known to, in the past, I've had planes before where I'll cut clear plastic and make a bridge there. And just that way when the flaps, I don't want to make the flaps go too far and then create a spoiler because that's not necessarily good either. But you could actually fly it that way because the spoilers would technically induce a higher speed, but it would also kick your angle of attack down slightly. Well, might be up slightly. Depends on the way the plane behaves. But I'm not gonna do that on this plane. I think it's gonna be totally fine. I'm just a little weirded out by that gap, okay? I don't know if they trimmed it wrong or what. But usually what we do is once we figure out how a plane sits CG-wise, see where my hand is? You see where my wrist is? I would not want that to come on right now because what would happen is I would be forced to pull my hand out quickly and I'd probably get cut as the thing accelerated out. It'd be right on my wrist. So just be careful. Trust your plane before you do stupid things like that. All right, so I'm just gonna say, this is 2700, 4S, and I'm just gonna say line like that, and then arrow, right? So now I know from personal experience on previous models like this, AKA the Voodoo, that we were able to fly on another brand of 4S. We are not going to give them any free exposure because they screwed us. And then we have this one, which is a 6S, 1300 milliamp, 40C. Okay, so 40C would be enough. I do find it a little strange. It's an XT60 and it's not a very big gauge wire for a 6S, but I can live with that. I think these came in a helicopter we recently did, but I cannot remember. And I'm sorry about that, guys. It might have been that green and white one there.
Yeah, because we don't have
I think it was
very
that
many other
YNXRCWQ,
ABC,
or
but a
whatever
P.
letters they came up with that day in China.
That one.
That one. So the only other thing I don't like about this is that I can see this big bundle. I do not want that to interfere with my rudder, okay? So you see that wire that's moving forward? So I'm gonna need to be mindful the way I load my battery, and I don't wanna bump into the bind switch. Now, just so you know, if I were to hit that bind switch in the middle of flight, I don't think it's gonna do anything because after a little bit, it stops being active, is my understanding. I'm not gonna test that theory right now, okay? So I'm just gonna not do that. Here's the other thing. See all these wires? They're big. They will impact the CG to a certain extent. I don't think it's going to be great enough that it's going to be some giant compromise, okay? Because we are talking about a small percentage basis of this plane. But I might want this battery placed the other way so that I can make a better loop so this gets flatter. Because I am noticing a little bit of pressure on the bottom of this. Now this appears to be solid foam, so I could carve some of that out. I could hog that out with like an X-Acto knife and a utility knife or something like that, and I could get that back in there, okay? But before I would go into a 4S flight with this is a 1500 4S, or if I would go to a 1300 6S, I would need to reestablish that the CG is gonna be okay, right? Now, the other thing is, this thing might be okay on a 2200 4S, but you're gonna have to slide that sucker almost all the way up to get this thing to hit CG. Just be aware. And then also, what other things was I gonna talk about? I also noticed that the elevator, you know, we tried our darndest, but I still feel like the elevator is a little bit down. Do you not see that? Am I crazy?
I do see that. Are you, a little bit.
I don't know if that's gonna make a big enough difference to matter, but if you guys see this, we're not in auto leveling. So it's probably better at this point to come in here and just try to fix it. So I'm gonna get in here, and you see this, like sometimes it's just really frustrating because I can't quite get this tool in. And it's designed to like pull these things off, but I can never quite get, this blade is too thick, way too thick. For like 90, look at the bite. The bite should be like collapsed, like totally flat. And it should be way thinner. So I may have to take this and just mill it down. Cause like, look at that. What the heck happened to that?
Yeah, you can like never get them.
I can never get them in underneath.
To get them off.
Yeah, to get them pried off. So I always have to put in just one set. Cause I've seen guys that have these and they just pop them off like nothing, okay? So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna unscrew half a turn and then one turn. And I'm gonna see if I still have enough purchase, which I think I do. Does that look like it's pretty level? Yeah, better. Okay, good enough, right?
Okay.
Now I'm gonna pull on it. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have a problem there. I feel like it's sturdy.
You went in quite a bit when we re-splined that.
Respline the, yep.
Yeah.
So we have the CG marked. We know that we're in the right spot. We have all the ball links attached properly. The only question we have is rudder trim might not be perfect to start the game, but it's gonna be close enough, okay, to get us in the air. Now, also I gotta say, on this particular plane, I'm super excited to see if it will do well with 6S or if it's just gonna like crap out on us. But I wanna fly this first because obviously with this nice, oh, we didn't talk about telemetry. That was the other thing I was gonna think about. Let's walk over to the right. There's your telemetry, 16.6 volts, okay? Altitude. And that's the other thing is you could do a boop, 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 beep, beep, beep on this. And that would be, of course, the Vario. If you want a Vario on this, it would be pretty weird. But a Vario is just going to be a barometric change, rate, and there will be a corresponding beep to let you know you're ascending, and then a corresponding beep, usually a lower pitch for down. Boop, 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 boop. Beep, 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 beep. And that tells you whether you're ascending or descending. It's usually used for thermaling in, you know, like that SZD-54 down there. I don't know if you can see that, but that is gonna be a sailplane for us. So hopefully we answered all your questions, but this 8360T, again, probably a little bit overkill. I'm hoping we don't find that the thrust reverse is totally unnecessary for us on this model. But I do remember this thing is pretty squirrely on landing because it has such hard tires. Maybe someday we'll get some softer tires. But in the meantime, we're gonna grin and bear it and put the thrust reverse in, which just means that we have to put a little bit more receiver in than I would otherwise need. So hopefully we answered all your questions. And I gotta admit, that does look pretty nice in there. I mean, it's a clean install. It's just, there's no getting around the fact that this has such a huge connector and everything. What would be probably wise and admittedly make a little bit cleaner install would be if I were to lop off part of this, strip back the lines, solder these together, and then just go ahead and do an EC3. But I really am not a big fan of EC3s. They're a pain in the butt to build, and that's why I build adapters on things like this when I do, okay? Hopefully you won't have a bunch of unanswered questions on this one too, because we went into such great depth. And I gotta say, I hope that doesn't pop off too. What a sweet looking plane, Miss America P-51 Pylon Racer from FMS. Beautiful plane. This thing's gonna be a handful. It's gonna be super amazing. And obviously at some point, if you wanna have one in your hangar and follow along on this build, all you have to do is check out the links in the video description below. We'll link to the plane, the battery or batteries that we used, or something similar. And we're gonna get you guys set up with links to the transmitter that we set up, which is the NX10. And admittedly, you could probably do the NX8, you'd be fine, but you are gonna need channels if you wanna take advantage of the thrust reverse on the Predator ESC. Now again, the other option is go with a slightly cheaper 630 and then maybe plop in an Avian ESC, which would give you the thrust reverse, but just to be honest, the Avian ESCs are pretty expensive. So you're probably still gonna be better off to just go ahead and get the bigger receiver with the more channels, AS3X and safe. Or get an 8230, or excuse me, 8220T, and then get the one with the reflex. Now our link is gonna be the one that is just for all the different choices. Okay, so like if you wanna get one that's a Miss America and you realize, you know, they're sold out of that, you'll be able to pick the other ones. And the only people that deviate from that would be Canadian users, because you have like a different link for Canadian stuff. Hopefully we answered 100% of your questions though. We did try to do a kind of a deep dive on this because I know a lot of times, especially if you guys are new, just returning to the hobby, you want to understand a little bit better how things work, how to set these things up. And I've had this question a bunch over the last probably 5 years. Why don't you download profiles? Well, first of all, there isn't a profile for this because this is a plug and play or a plug and fly, just depending on which manufacturer you're talking about. Whereas, you know, like that's a bind and fly over there. The Carbon Z T28 would be a bind and fly. The Cessna's a bind and fly. And incidentally, when you get a plug and fly, you're not gonna be able to download, you know, the profile. So why don't you download a profile? Because you wanna know how to do it when it's a plane like this. And as much rattling around in my brain as I do pertaining to the way these planes are supposed to work and the way I want them to work, just think if you have the basics, you could do almost any plane you want. And if you watch this video, you should be able to do most planes. The only thing you would deviate from on this plane and would be maybe if you had a plane that had Crow on it, okay? And we did that SCD-54 not too long ago from Arrows, which is also an FMS plane, basically. And so if you buy something like that and you want some help, just check out our video. All you have to do is go to brianphillipsrc.com. You can search by type and find that plane that you were looking for, you were thinking about. Maybe it's like, hey, I really like P-51s, but I'm not crazy about this canopy, because I had mentioned that earlier. There are P-51s that have a standard, you know, this would be like a razorback finish here. I believe that's what they call that. And you can get one with just like a bubble top, or a more conventional warbird looking style P-51. And the 1.2, I gotta say, is one of the best planes you can get from E-flite, which is made by FMS for E-flite, but we have different links because they're different planes, okay? So if you guys wanna find that on Brian Phillips RC, or you could just use the search engine on YouTube, click on my face. It's usually like this round circle, looks like a kid with some glasses and a headset on. Click on that, that'll bring you to our page. You could search our page that way. Usually the playlists are the best way to find what you're looking for because all the planes will be in the playlist. Like this plane will have its own playlist. It might be with the Voodoo, I'm not sure. Probably separate.
No.
Yeah, it'll probably be separate because, well, I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But the idea is all the videos we did for this particular plane will be together, even if they're with the Voodoo as well, right?
Yep.
So then you can go back to the beginning. If you're watching the 4th video we made about this, it should be there.
Or if you get one of these and it has a reflex, you just have to watch the Voodoo setup.
Because we did a 620.
It's the same plane.
But I don't think we had thrust reverse though. Or maybe we had thrust reverse and we didn't understand it was
know it.
there at the time because it did take us a while to figure out that yellow line thing.
That was a while ago. That we
But
did.
honestly, guys, sometimes we get them from FMS and they have Predator ESCs and they don't have thrust reverse.
Yeah, it's
like we got a Viper and everybody up and down. Oh, mine had thrust reverse. Yours has thrust reverse. I said, guys, we knew what we were looking for. It wasn't there.
Not there.
Our 15th anniversary Viper did not have it.
Nope.
Okay. But we've had plenty of planes from FMS that do have it. And even once in a while from other manufacturers, which we'll always point it out if we can get it. That being said, I think thrust reverse on this plane might be a little bit less necessary than other planes. And so you'll want to use your best judgment. All right, guys, that's all we got for you. Hopefully we answered them all million questions you had. And we do really appreciate you being here. As always, thanks to our Patreons and YouTube members, as well as super thankers. It's always nice when you do that. And then PayPal supporters as well. There's a lot of different ways to support us. We still firmly believe the best way to support us, if you're going to support us financially, would be to buy a plane, buy a battery, buy a transmitter, whatever it is you need and want right now. Get that thing. Don't just get what's fastest, bestest, cheapest. Listen to some fool online like me. Get what you need, but then use me as a tool, because I am a tool. And then you can learn what you need to learn and you can get what you need to get out of the video. And then in return for that, all you have to do is just like buy what you're gonna buy anyway, and then make them pay the bill if you did wanna support us financially, which is super cool. But there again, if you're one of those people that just can't live without supporting us, then we have those 4 methods there. We didn't do that for like 7.5 years or 8 years of this channel, but then finally it was just like, okay, there was people asking all the time and I got sick of saying no. So we turned it on. I called it a YouTube begging site, the Patreon. But the truth is, really, the best way you support us is by buying planes. Like, that is the #1 way. It's don't worry, we do appreciate the other stuff, but really, that's the way you really support us, is watch the videos, smash the like button, click the bell when you're subscribing so that you get notified and you come back and watch more. And then when you see something you love, just buy it when you love it. It's the easiest way to do it. Plus, that also helps to support the partners that support us with these planes. Because, I mean, we've got hundreds of them, okay? I couldn't do it without their support. So, we do want to support the people that support us, and that's the way you can do it. It keeps this little ecosystem going. And I know for some of you guys, that's got to be irritating, and we don't mean to be irritating, but the truth is, we are here helping people. We do it every week, sometimes 2, sometimes 6, sometimes 4. Just depends on how busy we are. It depends on what we've got coming and what new releases are slated. And we do work a pretty rigorous schedule, because here it is, what, midnight on Saturday? Mm-hmm. We started at like 3 p.m. So anyway, we had a little gap in there. We went to dinner, unusual. But the truth is, guys, we work our butts off to make this YouTube channel what it is. And we've been doing that for almost a decade. We did not trip and fall into this. We worked hard. And we know you guys that have been watching us for years really get that. And we appreciate you guys having been part of our path to success, or whatever you want to call this thing that we're in. But we really do appreciate you guys being here for the long haul. And those of you that are brand new, we appreciate you being here for the first time. We're going to get you up to speed and hopefully in the air just as quick as possible. Because here on Brian Phillips RC, we're not going to leave you high and dry. We're going to get you in the air where you want to be. And we're going to try to get you there as cheap, effectively, and at the right time with the right plane, so that you don't become a statistic, which is a one and done, meaning you get this plane for your first plane and it's gone like that. And then you get about $500, $600, $700, $800 down the drain. By the time you buy this and a battery and a charger and a transmitter, I mean, you're going to be like a darn near $1,000 into it. But don't think every plane's that expensive, by the way. If you're brand new to the hobby, you're going to spend a big chunk on this. You're going to spend a big chunk on that charger over there. And then you're going to spend a small chunk on the battery for this plane. And then you're going to buy a small chunk on the next plane's battery, and so on and so forth. Pretty soon you got 15 batteries. You can fly most every plane. And you could do 3 or 4 flights. And then you get a couple $100 every couple of months buying a new plane. And you're going to be totally satisfied doing that. I promise you, it does not have to be a new plane every 2 or 3 days like we do, okay? Because there's a certain limit that everybody has. But just remember to tell your wife, snake's in the basement, don't answer the door. The delivery guy, we got to come up with something about the delivery guy being dangerous. Because you know, have them go to the back door and deliver. I mean, whatever works for your family. For me, I just put them like in the living room in a bunch of piles and stuff until we fill up half of the house.
How's that working for you?
It's working great. For you, it might be a little different. And if you're just coming back to the hobby, guys, we're glad to have you too. But just remember, a lot has changed. Just even in the 10 years we've been doing this or so, a lot has changed. Mostly for the better. And I mean, I'm seriously, mostly for the better. There are a few things that have gotten worse. Namely, during COVID, things went up quite a bit in cost. But so did everything else, for God's sake. How much is orange juice now? How much is gas for your car? How much is everything has gone like crazy, okay? So with respect, the RC industry has taken a little bit of a hit there, but we're talking about what, like a 15, 20% increase? It's a lot better than a 300% increase on chicken breasts. I mean, for God's sake, if you got a family of 6 like we do, it hurts a lot more there than it does here, okay? So don't give up on your dreams so you can buy chicken breast. We all like breasts, okay? All right, that's all I got for you. And on that high note, thanks for watching. Seriously do come back for more. We want you guys all here with us, growing and expanding in this amazing, wonderful, fulfilling, exciting, difficult, challenging, frustrating, amazing